Hi, everybody. We are here watching the two women's norm internationals that are happening right now at the London Mind Sports Centre. And so we've got a She Plays to Win International and we've got an ECF Women's Invitational. So let's have a look. The games have just started, round two. I'm going to put your GM on there, Peter. I'm joined by GM Peter Wells.
That's always nice.
There you go. Bit of respect there.
Kind of good that you can't lose it.
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I saw Danny this morning saying he thought all titles should be scrapped. I thought, thanks a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, that you'd have to keep earning them each year. Yeah, that would be a disaster, wouldn't it?
That wouldn't
But
be a lot
anyway, here we go. So this game is looking very interesting already. We're looking at Lanyao against Sarah Longson. And it's a very... I've actually played this as black, I think, against Sarah Longson. This not exactly, not all the way up to here, but
close, yeah.
But close. So I think Sarah can play it for both colours.
Well, this is really interesting because this 2 knights thing. I used to think this line was a little bit greedy for white, and then I realised that actually proving the compensation for black isn't as easy as it sort of feels like it ought to be. And of course, you're not just a pawn. You're not just a pawn down as black. You've got a reasonably dodgy structure if you don't make something of it as well.
It's a pawn, isn't it? And the ISO C pawn and the knight over on A5.
And the knight on A5. Normally people would make a big fuss about that knight on the rim, but all black's other pieces are so good and white's pieces are a bit awkward. So people tend not to talk too much about that. But this line's really interesting because after Queen F3, I always thought exactly as Sarah did that Bishop E7 is the right way to go. And the compensation for that black gets for those 2 pawns if white takes on C6 is fantastic. So Lanyao's just retreated her bishop to D3, which makes a lot more sense. And so now we get something similar to the main lines, but we all the time we have to kind of bear in mind what difference the moves Queen F3 and Bishop E7 make, which may be quite tricky to judge. So black's main idea, they want to put a knight on F4 sometimes, and they want to play F5 sometimes. These 2 things can amount to quite a lot of compensation, but the exact details of this particular version of the line, I don't know. For the moment, I imagine, black wants to castle before going F5, I guess. Otherwise, some Queen H5 check.
And probably white wants to castle too.
Well, white might want to castle too. Yeah, that's not a daft idea. I mean, it may even be that black might be threatening F5 check now, Queen H5 check, King F8, and then, the Queen is even more of a target for some Knight F4. So it may be that white has to deal with that even before black castles. It's a very rich and exciting position. And I would kind of expect that playing this sharp line, white would still know what to do in the next couple of moves. So she may just be, doing what people do and just gathering their thoughts and knight G3. That looks very sensible, trying to gain some control of that F5 square.
Right. So black could not play F5 straight away. And even if you castle, it's debatable whether you can play F5 straight away after that.
Yeah, that might be. I imagine you still probably can't because of some bishop takes. And if G6, you'd have Queen G4 or something. It all looks a bit scary for black. Although, that's something where you'd want to check the details rather than guessing. Yeah, I don't know if black's already going knight F4 or if she's just castling.
Yeah, you do sometimes go knight F4 quite early, don't you, in this?
Yeah, and there's some positions where white allows black to take on D3 and it sort of looks all terribly hideous, but somehow, again, black still has these weaknesses, so winning back 1 pawn may not always be enough if white gets, free development and everything. And that, as I say, that knight on A5, people always talk about long-term and short-term advantages. That knight on A5, it's a kind of dynamic thing, but it can be quite long term. Things stuck out there for hours.
You sometimes try and go like C5, knight C6, don't you? But I'm looking at that long diagonal.
Yeah, you probably want the bishop off the board before you start. Do you mean once the bishops exchange, perhaps?
Maybe.
And B4 looks kind of a bit.
Yeah. So where will Sarah put her bishop that's currently on C8? I wonder.
I suspect she won't give it priority. I suspect she'll go castles, knight F4 in some version where she's threatening F5. Yeah. And, then if the bishop on D3 gets taken off, then the question of where to put the bishop on C8 looks like a really different deal from it would if you tried to deal with it first.
Yeah. Hi, Waterford Wizard. Let's see how Zoe. How did Zoe do this morning? It's on my same tab, so we'll check that out.
Zoe drew this morning, and I thought she had a tiny advantage and might be pressing a little bit, but
who is she
I'm
playing?
really impressed. I'm always impressed with Zoe. She always comes away from one long tournament and then plays another. I remember
she's only just finished, hasn't she?
She's only just finished the European individual, and those things are pretty grueling. Yeah. And she's immediately here. I mean, okay, it's obviously the advantages of youth, but I'm very impressed that she can do it. I've seen her do this before, and I saw her play really well, like the weekend after she'd been playing the online Olympiad.
Yeah.
And the online Olympiads are reasonably stressful, preparation experience. Yeah. She was out 1 week later, really impressive. So maybe she was just.
Well, if you play that much chess, you're bound to keep improving. That's very.
Well, you would think so, yeah. That certainly helps. Although it's a good idea to give yourself time to sort of assess how it's going as well. Yeah. I mean, a little bit of, but yeah, I think she is improving. I don't think there's much doubt.
Yeah. Okay. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at some of the other games in this tournament. So let's look at SPTW against Salmeya. How do you say that? Salmeya Zaksaita.
Yeah, that's as good a guess as I'm going to have.
All right. So we've got time.
That's by no means the hardest pronunciation in the tournament. There's a couple of players I was really wondering about beforehand. Yeah, there's so many Sicilians these days where white does odd things with their queen.
Knight c3. So, okay. So we're going for an f4 Sicilian here? No.
This is really interesting because, when you go 2e6 is a pretty good move against the f4 Sicilian, I reckon. Yeah. And I'm not sure that all the f4 Sicilian players always have a really good idea what they're going to do against 2e6. Not playing the f4 Sicilian then is quite a good way to build a repertoire, I think. But d4 immediately and queen takes is obviously quite unusual.
Queen takes. Knight c6, queen e3.
And again, I mean, people are always playing, like in the e4, e5, d4 stuff, people go queen e3 as well. It always looks a bit clumsy to me. I'm not quite sure what...
It's quite early to get queen out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a funny square. But there are these Sicilians now where white plays, even in the open Sicilian plays, things like queen d3 and then along to g3. I think people are starting to realise a queen on the third rank has a few sort of hidden ideas that they hadn't appreciated before. But this still looks a slightly odd one. But again, e6, it depends what black can do with her development as well. Maybe the queen will turn out to be really good on g3 or somewhere. But I sort of feel that white might have a few things to navigate in the very first few moves.
Yeah, bishop d2. So it looks like Elżbieta might be.
Yeah, there's going to be. I think there's going to be a long.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to just hop through all that. We've got 5 games.
Yeah, that looks quite fun. I mean, they look quite fun. This morning's games were very exciting, and it looks quite fun now as well.
Okay. So let's see. Madara Orlovska against Sheila Jackson. And so this one we have d4, d5, and knight c3, knight 6, and bishop f4.
One thing I noticed this morning, most of the games are starting 1e4, and the ones that didn't, there were a couple of early knight c3s like this. There seems to be another.
This is pretty trendy, isn't it?
It is a bit trendy. I think this position arose this morning, and the player went e4, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is a kind of weird reversed black-marked Dima gambit. And but except that after, I think it went e4, knight takes, then white exchanged knights, and then instead of going d5, sort of black-marked Dima or no, what's the thing called, Albin counter gambit style, white just took on c5.
Okay.
And as soon as she did that, I realised I'd seen someone like Jan Gustafsson the other day saying that he thought that wasn't a bad idea.
Okay.
And this one, but I think here white's going to play it a little more conservatively, yeah?
Yeah. E3. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. So after e3 defends the b5 square, so then black always has to start checking each move that knight b5 isn't a problem.
Basic. So
it's no longer going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I used to think this should be the end of the discussion. Like after black goes a6 in these positions, white ought to think, oh, knight c3 was a bit daft. But actually, it seems like they quite often play moves like knight a4 and show that those squares are actually a little bit, c5, b6 might be a little bit shaky.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely white's showing there's more to this line than I used to think there ever could be. So yeah, simple development.
Okay, knight c6. And that's where we're up to.
Okay.
I guess white's gonna get the bishop out and castle short.
Yeah, I guess you could play. I don't know to what extent bishop g4 is an issue. So you might play h3 and bishop d3, or you might just play bishop e2. Yeah, I think white's almost bound to castle short, because that open c file would come back to haunt you if you tried to castle long. I don't think there's anything bad enough in black's position to compensate for that. So
yeah.
Okay, this could go many ways. It could become quite dry, or it could become quite exciting.
Sheila's playing very fast, isn't she? I mean, she must. It can't be too big a surprise, the opening for her.
No, that's interesting. I guess I haven't checked, but it may well just be what
Madara normally plays.
What she does, yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to think this is an opening I would have only as a sort of. I can't imagine playing this opening all the time, but maybe there's enough life in it. I mean, Jabava and people made a lot of. They made a lot out of it for a while, so.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay, we've got an update on Diana Mirza''s performance. She's playing at Reykjavik at the moment, and she has 2 draws at the moment. Doing well, very well in her performance there. Okay, let's look at Audrey against Camwell. Ooh, now what's this one? This looks another early knight.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
let's see it. So we have e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and d4 this time.
Yep.
Takes, bishop c4, d5, and knight g5, looking at that f7 square.
I think that move is unusual, and I think it's. I mean, but there's a lot of these things that used to be unusual, and suddenly they get some revival. So I don't know if it's one of those. I might be a bit out of date on this. The thinking used to be that black should play knight h6.
Okay.
And then white has some kind of trick taking on f7 with queen h5 check.
Oh, right. Okay.
And black's development is good enough that, you can wander around with your king in the middle a little bit, as long as you've got all your pieces out, kind of thing. And I think, the fairly obvious looking knight e5 isn't so good for the reason that you get a similar position just with less development for black.
Yeah, knight e5.
I'm pretty sure knight h6 must logically still be the move, unless I don't see that d5 adds to black's causes. So I imagine black should still play knight h6. But quite whether this is a new thing which people are, a revived, very old thing which people are now doing again, I don't know.
I know there's like an Alpha Zero one where black does an early knight h6, even allowing a bishop h6, and still that seems to work for black and get the
just the double
yeah. It's surprising.
Well, there's lots of Caro-Kann and French lines where people seem to do that and get away with it. The bishop pair is a mighty weapon sometimes. I'm not sure how anyone ever got away with playing the Trompovsky, really. But
so we're expecting a knight h6.
Well, I think we should, but Campbell's been thinking for 13 minutes, so I imagine she's been caught by surprise at least.
Yeah.
Probably fair to say. Yeah. Audrey, I think, was in some danger of losing this morning and managed to fight and hold a draw quite well. So that's usually usually quite a nice psychological position to be in. You sort of feel quite good at that point.
Yeah.
A good moment to attack.
Okay. So this game it looks already after 5 moves looks like it'll be an exciting one.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Let's see, Olivia against Yao Yao.
Okay. This looks like theory.
Let's see.
But I need to. Yeah. So it's an open Spanish.
Another e4. So we are getting quite a lot of e4 openings.
Yeah. No, there was the same pattern this morning. Yeah. I think loads of e4s and.
Lopez.
We go d4, b5. So the main line of the open, and black has to defend d5 with bishop e6. And this is the position where white's got a big choice of moves, of which knight d2 is one of the most respectable. Knight c5, c3.
Okay, and Olivia drops the bishop back and keeps the bishop pair there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember. I mean, there's some position. I'm trying to remember where bishop e7 is on the sort of hierarchy of lines, because I think that's a position where d4 used to be the main line for black instead of bishop e7, but never looked that appealing to me. So, but I'm not sure what black's meant to play now. I'm sort of still a little. I mean, I don't know the latest theory, but I've always been a bit of a fan of knight bd2 against the open Spanish. So we'll see how it plays.
So what's the idea? Just to put the rook on f1?
Well, I think part of the idea is to kick that knight out quickly. You know, some of the main lines, if you keep that knight on e4, you have to face those sort of scary ideas with bishop c5 and some. There's even a knight takes f2, isn't there? One of those famous lines, so famous that I've forgotten the name of it. And I think it's quite a bit simpler in some ways, knight bd2, although there were some crazy lines back in the Kasparov-Anand match all those years ago. God, that's showing my age there, I think. Yeah, I think White ultimately wants to put some pressure on d5 and also, you know, wants to play to try and well, the main thing you're trying to prevent as White is black organising her pieces rather, to manage to go c5 at some moment. And if you can keep control of the c5 square and pressure the d5 pawn, those are probably White's two main aims. Yeah, I don't know if this is a position where black should still be looking at the move d4 while she can.
Oh, d4 straight away.
It's possible, but I think there are some endings which come from these, which are you know, things which they might make sense between 2700s, where you're trying to play for a draw in a slightly worse position with black. But if you're playing for a fighting, if both sides are playing for a fighting game, there may be a difference.
I think they are at this stage, right? Because we're only round 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this, of course, Women's International Master Norm tournament. So both of these players would have their eye on an international master norm. And to do it, I believe they need 6.5 points overall.
6.5. Okay, that's
6.5 out of 9. So it's quite a tough target.
It's sometimes important to pace yourselves in these things as well, though, because if you think about it, when you play open tournaments, if you have a bad day, you usually get a weaker player the next game.
But not in this. You've already kind of got your order of opponents lined up even at the start.
Yeah, here you know who you're getting, but there's no relationship between your result and the strength of player the next day. You can. So you can, if you lose, you can easily face someone where you might be outrated again the next day, and that's quite.
It's true.
Quite tough. It's one of the, it's. I wonder how many. Some of the players here may not have played that many closed tournaments, and they're quite a different dynamic to open.
True. It is true. Yeah.
I think most people haven't. I haven't played enough closed tournaments. I'd love to have played more. I was lucky enough in about 15 years ago to play some Staunton Memorials and things, which gave me a bit more of an idea. But up to that point, I'd played really dismally few.
I grew up in near a place called Maidenhead. There was this junior tournament that used to go, gosh, it must be in the, I don't know whether it was the 80s, probably the 80s. And they used to have an all play all, like for the older stages. And I just remember that, and you'd still, quite a tough event, and you'd have one game a day, and so, but these guys are playing 2 games a day.
I think that's even tougher. That's what was on my mind when I said about pacing yourself. 2 games a day as well.
Yeah. They'll be tired by the end. Yeah. Okay, let's check in on the other tournament that's going on, the second Women's IM Norm tournament, and this is the first She Plays to Win International. So the one we just looked at is organised by Aga, the ECF Women's Director. This She Plays to Win is being organised by Lauren da Costa. And they're both being held at the same place. So very nice, sociable event as well. I've started off with Zoe Varney against Ellen Kakoulidis. And let's just see how we got to this position. So another E4 opening Sicilian. C3 Sicilian. And I think we've got some very Zoe followers perhaps in the chat. And so Zoe, she's a good theoretician. She knows her stuff in general.
Yeah, I mean, if I was sort of, as a coach, you sometimes have to try and work out decent anti-Sicilian repertoires without going down the open lines, for people who don't want tons of theory. And I think these lines with H3 and Bishop D3, slightly odd though it looks, as long as you like playing with a big pawn center, they make quite a lot of sense.
Go Zoe, says Southern Chris.
That's the spirit.
And so d4.
Okay, so black. Yeah, I wonder whether white would have gone d4 if black had played knight c6 there. Feels to me like castles slightly, gives white.
Oh, it makes
knight
it
d6
easier
is
to
one
play
more
d4.
piece to worry about being.
Yeah.
It may well be that tactically you can just play d4 anyway, and actually not play knight c6 then might just be more flexible. But it's those things are worth just pausing for. Though it seems to me like you've got to like your pawn centers to play these openings because you're playing bishop f1 to d3 to c2, and you need the move h3. So there's some loss of time. But but after this one, if the center gets cleared, then white's position looks quite healthy.
Do you know Ellen at all, Peter?
I don't know Ellen at all. No,
I think I do. I think I was at the. I think it was Ellen at the varsity match. So after the varsity match, so there was a dinner and we all ate and drank well, and then we all played some exchange chess. And so I was playing with Matthew, and then it was Ellen. And she had turned up, and I think she had been following the, the David Howell match against
Niels Grandelius.
Exactly, against Niels Grandelius, and I think she had been at the match, and so she knew all about exchange. She was a really experienced exchange player.
Okay, that is an
just doing all these snap checkmates out of nowhere.
Excellent. No, it's interesting, this position, because it occurs to me that if you had this kind of structure, black probably wouldn't be playing d5 so quickly. They'd put some pressure on the e4 pawn first with rook e8 or something. But the bishop on c2 is perfectly placed for keeping that pawn defended. This is one of those positions where the bishop feels like clearly it's got a better role on c2 than it would have had on e2, for example.
But I thought you can't just leave that black d pawn there because it might just push along to.
Well, yeah, I mean, one move you might want to play is bishop e3 and try and control the c5 square in front of the backward pawn. Okay, she's taken. So this, and then I was trying to wonder whether there were ever possibilities for black to play something like knight g4 with the d4 fork to follow or something. I was trying to look for cheap tactics. I just get up to the point where white plays bishop c5 in reply to that, and I was trying to work out what was going on, but. Now, if she's simply taking, then after knight takes, she needs a good move to show that black isn't just simply very active. Because, that bishop and knight work quite well, pressuring c3 and along that diagonal. White needs a good move now to show that she still has some sort of hopes of an opening initiative. And I'm not sure, if she just gives black an isolated d-pawn, I think it's going to be a fairly good version because that bishop on g7 basically makes it much harder for the one on c1 to develop.
Yeah.
It sort of feels to me on the face
of it. You don't particularly like the idea of knight takes knight, or maybe
knight takes knight. I think black could probably take either way, but I guess she might take with the pawn. And then I'm not sure how you develop c1 without losing. Okay, is this what she's played? So
yeah,
we will find out. Yeah, if black took with the queen, I might be quite tempted not to take on d5. I think she should take with the pawn, which she has. Yeah. And now Zoe needs to find a way to develop her bishop on c1 without losing b2, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, what about just rook b1?
Well, rook b1, again, rook b1's probably easier with that bishop on c2 than it would be if the bishop was on e2. She doesn't have to worry about bishop f5 and stuff. So maybe yet another role for that bishop. But I think she needs to be... I mean, you also need to make sure that black isn't sort of active enough to go... rook e8 and bishop a6 or something, and then push that d-pawn quite quickly.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. It's a bit hard to judge, but it sort of seems to me that even if white gets coordinated, it's not that scary for black anyway. I mean, rook b1, you could also just go rook b8 and renew the... Yeah. I suppose then white can go b3.
Bishop f4 or something.
Yeah, she could play b3.
b3 first, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It feels to me like a perfectly... fine opening outcome for black, I think.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's not. Okay, I might. If I
was just kind of level, I suppose.
Well, if I was going to be playing that line with white again, I'd probably want to look at that moment where she took on d5 and see if there's something else there.
Yeah.
Maybe even bishop g5 might be worth exploring or something. But this feels okay for black to me. But we'll see. I mean, so as you say, Zoe's usually pretty well prepared and may have some other
idea. Yeah. Okay, let's look at some more games on this tournament. Okay, let's start at the top. Okay, so this is Carmen against Eugenia. And let's see how this has gone.
Yeah, I felt a little bit sorry for Eugenia this morning. She was playing really, really well,
right,
against one of the top seeds.
Okay.
And she got one of those positions where, in order to make progress, you have to make your own king more exposed.
Right.
And there's such a tough judgment call, even for when you've been playing a long, long time. And okay, she started young, but she's still relatively young in experience. I think she's one of our.
How old is Eugenia now?
I'm a bit out of touch. I don't know exactly, but
I'll look it up in the background.
She is not old, and she, she's certainly the youngest English player playing in the tournament. I'm pretty sure about that. So playing in either tournament. And I've been quite impressed with her for a while. I think she's
Eugenia, 2008 she was born.
Yeah, exactly.
That sounds very young.
she either is just 14 or she'll be 14 sometime this year. So that is, in my book, that's pretty young. And I think she's a very promising player.
Okay, well, let's see her. So E6 French defense. D4, D5, knight D2, slash, C5, takes, knight F3, knight C6. Does white normally take there on D5, by the way?
Yeah, I'd say I think it's still the main line. Some people play knight F3 first because they want to avoid queen takes D5 lines. So playing the way white did here, black could also take on D5 with the queen. But it's a funny thing with the Tarrasch because it's sort of the knight on D2 slightly blocks white's development, so it feels like it's a justification for taking an isolated queen pawn with black. On the other hand, that knight is sort of en route to the square you want in front of the isolated pawn, so there are pluses for both sides. But yeah, this is still quite standard stuff, I think. And now it's annoying for black because she wants the formation with the knight on E7. So she has to do what usually looks like a mistake in isolated queen pawn positions and develop the bishop, allowing white to win a tempo by taking.
Oh, it's this mind game where you try and delay developing your bishop.
Yeah, exactly. You want to. Yeah, it's really annoying. But in this variation, you have to go bishop. Pretty much have to go bishop d6. You have to lose that tempo. It's worth pointing out that it's not a mistake. It's just
normal. Okay,
and it has to be. Yeah.
And white castles.
97.
And 97. Knight round to b3, so that's going to block this isolated pawn.
Oh, bishop b6 is an old move, I think. It's sort of... in my youth, this was a bit frowned upon, but my youth is a very long time ago. I don't know. I think this is back... Botvinnik had something to do with this, I think. I don't know. It's an interesting move, but white wants to exchange dark squared bishops to try and get a grip on that d4 square, and it's just a question of whether keeping the bishop on that diagonal might make it easier for white to change the dark square bishops. Sort of rook e1, bishop e3. But on the other hand, I'm sure she has some idea that your d6 was the most standard. That's
right. Just dropping it back this way.
Yeah, coming back that way is where you'll find like thousands of games probably. Whereas this one's probably only hundreds.
Thanks for the follow, Wolfgang. Rook e1 and castle.
Yep.
And bishop e3 off into swap.
She's doing what I said, and now Eugenia needs a good idea for why she's allowed. I mean, one of the things in this sometimes. For example, you could imagine the move bishop g4 here being sort of sensible, pinning the knight, developing, that kind of thing. In all those positions, I think black has to weigh up whether white can ever capture on d5 by taking, for example, on b6, queen takes b6, and then bishop takes c6. Black has to take back with the knight because otherwise it's going to be on prise. And then, black always needs to check whether white's able to take a pawn on d5. I suspect she can't there, but... it's just something you need to keep an eye on.
Black could just drop the bishop back, I guess, and then line it up sort of the other way around with the queen.
Well, yeah, it's always good to line up the other way around because when you get to h2, it's mate. But I kind of think that if you want the bishop on that diagonal, you should go there immediately because otherwise it's sort of another tempo. If you went bishop c7, I might just go bishop c5, and you might already be feeling the pin. You might not get get your queen onto that diagonal.
Yeah. Okay,
I suspect some move.
Bishop G4. Yes, she's done it. She's done your move, Peter. Bishop G4.
Oh, and white has played very quickly. Okay.
No, sorry, we're not quite live
yet. Oh, we're not quite live. Okay.
Yeah. Takes. Now we're live.
Now we're live. Okay. Yeah. So this is the position I was talking about, where white could take on c6, knight takes, but I suspect queen takes d5, then black has knight b4, and I think the queen is overloaded defending c2 and f3. Is that fair?
So
so if white took on c6 to force black...
I can do this analysis board, I think. Shall we try it?
Yeah, try that. That would be...
Try that. Okay, I'm just going to click it and open game and analysis. Tell me if you can still see it.
Yeah, I can now. That's good. That's good.
Okay, so if we go to the end, and because now I can do arrows and all sorts of nice stuff. So, okay, you're talking about...
Yeah, I was just talking about bishop takes c6, and obviously black has to take that with the knight. But I think queen takes d5, then black has knight b4.
And knight b4.
And that poor old queen can't defend d5 and f3.
Yeah.
And I suspect that will be very bad news, because actually it's not just that black will smash the pawns. There's probably after she does, there's some queen g6 check, which might win some material as well, depending on where the queen's gone. So, okay, the queen could go to e4, but it looks all a bit unlikely to me.
Yeah. Hi, Kevin. How you doing? Kevin's tuning in between rounds of the Reykjavik Open. Spectating.
Excellent.
Okay. And so...
Yeah,
I do arrows like this. Let me just try that out. Yes, and that's how you do arrows.
There's an incredible number of English players in Reykjavik. Did you see?
I saw Ginger GM was playing.
Well, I tweeted about it yesterday because I was just a bit shocked. There were nearly 30 English players there.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And that's absolutely stunning. I mean, you never get that in any, okay, I mean, Iceland sort of feels a bit like a neighbour, but it's a fairly, you can't exactly hop on a boat or something, can you? So it's not.
I think everybody's just wanting to get out and about.
Well, it's also a lovely, I mean, Reykjavik's such a lovely place, and Iceland is such a fascinating
I've never been there, actually.
You should.
I want to. I've wanted to for quite a long time. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. She doesn't want any of that nonsense. She wants to play bishop d3, threatening, well, I don't know what you call it. It's not a Greek gift, is it? Because there's no gift. It's just a Greek win.
Say good luck to Nigel Povar for me, Kevin. Yeah. So, fine. So she just moved back.
Yeah, so she's threatening bishop takes h7, but just to win a pawn and open the king, not a Greek gift. Just to...
Still, that would be a nice one if she can get it in.
Well, I very
but I'm sure
rely on Eugenia not to allow her that, I think.
I think Eugenia won't. Okay, let's see Louise. Yeah, sorry, I've skipped one. Sorry, let's not. Let's see Louise in a minute. Let's see Lara against Alessia.
Lara had a really tough start this morning. She got a nice position out of the opening, and then it went just downhill and downhill. And it looks like it's put her in a very aggressive mood this afternoon, which is probably a very good response.
So Lara's one of the higher rated players.
Yeah, she's a very good player, Lara. But something went wrong this morning. She got what looked to me like a pleasant kind of queenless middle game, and it just went... Yeah. She ended up with the wrong minor piece, and everything went wrong.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you lose, I think the best way is to come out really storming, really...
Yeah.
Really aggressive and get yourself, not just get a point back, but get yourself back in the mood. And I have a feeling that's what she's trying to do here. Although the 4 knights is not the obvious.
4 knights. About that, 4 knights.
Okay.
This can get quite sharp, can't it?
Well, I suppose it can. I've never been a fan at all. I wrote a book on the Scotch once and didn't include it, which I got some flack for. I didn't regard this as proper Scotch, but
you can include whatever you like.
Well, you sort of can, but people can criticise you for whatever they like.
Yeah,
as well.
Maybe they want to know what to play against it.
Well, no, I think it's fair enough. I thought this is. I see this as an offshoot of the 4 knights rather than an offshoot of the Scotch, but I'm sure there's plenty of people disagree with me still. But yeah, it's obviously then it became fashionable at some point, and I sort of retrospectively wished I had included it perhaps, but okay, so white takes on d5, and she doesn't.
She doesn't.
Okay, so
thanks for the follow, Kabadja out. Yeah, so bishop d2. Okay, so the normal move's to take, is it?
The normal move is to take on d5, and then both sides castle and white plays bishop g5, putting some sort of, well, threatening bishop takes f6 and knight takes d5, putting some pressure on the d pawn.
Yeah, but Lara has been playing extremely quickly, so I expect this is.
No, I'm sure this is absolutely sure this will be some kind of preparation. And I'm trying to think if I mean, I've played this line with black, and I imagine at some point in my life I must have looked at bishop d2, but if I have, it's completely gone. No idea at all. One logical idea, if black were to play bishop takes c3 and d takes e4, I assume that white can take on f6 and e4 and probably be very slightly better. I don't know. Black should castle in that position, threatening rook e8. White has, and if white has to castle, then I'm not sure whether b2 can be on prise, but I imagine these are things she's looked at. I mean, one of the great things about chess now, it's sort of a great thing and a slightly annoying thing at different times, is that there are loads of lines which were sort of pretty much rejected out of hand in the old days, which the engine has shown are actually well worth.
You can actually try it, yeah.
Come back and revisit all these things we used to think were a bit weird, and it's sort of made it more difficult for players who sort of grew up with those kind of intuitions and instincts and things. But it's also made it more interesting in some ways. Of course, the computer can also kill the lines dead sometimes at the same time. So I don't know. Castles looks like a very rational, simple response. See what white's got in mind.
Yeah. And they're both kind of keeping this tension in the centre there.
Well, that's right, yeah. So like I said, I mean, you'd want to know what happens after bishop takes c3 and d takes e4, but I imagine there's some way to make sense of that for white. Similarly, bishop takes c3 and knight takes e4.
Yeah, I'll just put it on an analysis.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure my suggestion here is really going to qualify for analysis, but it's just a sort of.
So okay, we'd done bishop d2, castles, and we were talking about bishop c3.
I mean, these are just things. If you were going to play this with white, you'd want to know what to do after knight takes e4 here, for example. You'd need to.
Yeah. So knight takes e4, and so I suppose think about just taking here.
Well, it's a bit difficult. Otherwise, you're losing another tempo by moving that bishop on c3 again. So I imagine, yeah.
Here. Okay. Well, white's definitely got the better pawn structure.
Yeah.
But can we win?
She has got fewer of them to be
fewer pawns. Fewer pawns. Yeah. But yeah. So how is this? I guess you move the queen out the way, and
the engine says queen e2, which looks very logical. I mean, you might just sort of check that queen h5 wasn't doing something scary, but it seems very unlikely. And then queen e2, black has to rook e8 or bishop f5 or something to defend that pawn. I mean, I think basically if white wins that pawn back, then the structure kicks in a bit, and it's going to be a long game, but black's going to be definitely worse. So,
yeah, I mean, you'd have to like endgames if you wanted to go into this.
Yeah, I was probably wrong about her going all out to attack. Maybe that came as a consequence of how black reacted, rather than being part of the game plan. Right. I don't know, I mean, if having defended the pawn, I'm thinking about things like bishop f5 if you want to flick in rook d1, but that seems then you're kind of inviting queen g5, and black may have, one or two ideas of her own then on the king side.
So like rook d1, queen g5.
Yeah, I think then that white might be slightly. Okay, the engine wants to go queen e3, but again, that's one of those moves the engine likes that we would have found a bit hideous back in the day.
Yeah, because now, even if you just take, right, and then white's pawn structure is not as good as it was.
Well, and then bishop e6, and you wonder, you need to see probably some moves ahead to understand why it's fine for white to be a pawn down here. Yeah. I mean, you can see that black's structure is a bit iffy.
Yeah.
But maybe there's some very profound idea where white's trying to win a pawn on the queen side, and actually that f3 pawn does a better job of restraining black's kingside pawns than it would if it was on f2. That would be a typical example of the engine being very profound without even realizing it was being very profound, I suppose.
Yeah.
But it's a bit odd to the human eye. I mean, it doesn't look like something.
No, yeah. It doesn't
You'd have
seem
rushed
like
for
you'd
in the
want
old
to do
days,
that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so black didn't take though. Black played
bishop g4. That's well. I mean that move depends entirely on whether white is reluctant to play f3 or happy to do so, really. And I almost wonder, given how keen she was not to play e takes d5, I'm almost wondering whether f3 might have been the reply to something like rook e8 anyway.
Yeah.
In which case, you might prefer to go rook e8 than bishop g4. But yeah, I suspect that f3 does white no harm. But black may be looking for some d takes e4. At a particular.
f3.
I don't know how the tactics work here.
Back. Oh, okay. She Lara played e5 here.
Yeah.
And knight d7. And then I think Zoe's favourite move, g4.
Well, g4 is another.
Or is it Louisa's favourite move? Maybe both of them.
I'm not sure. There's so many g4s in the world now, which people wouldn't used to. I mean, it all started back when. Do you remember Shirov and those people doing g4 in the semi-star?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I think that kicked a lot of it off. Now everyone goes g4 all the time, but yep.
Here we have Lara's g4. Bishop
so
g4.
What it means is that she played quite a quiet opening, and suddenly it looks like she's been out.
It's gone crazy.
Yeah, it's gone crazy. It's great fun because the lines where black took on e4 would have been a lot less exciting than this.
No, this is fun. But she's gone f4 as well now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that e pawn needs guarding, and now black needs to do something about f5. So she pretty much has to take.
Black takes the bishop.
Yep.
Takes, and
I mean, I rather like this for white because I kind of think that it's more likely to end up in a strong attack for white than the king side being shown to be weak, kind of thing. And I also think that positionally, there's some things to like now that there's an open c file against those doubled c pawns as well. So you kind of got one of those positions where white doesn't have to win with an attack. They can things can go nicely in a more positional version as well, as long as the king side doesn't prove to be too open.
Yeah, you've got to make sure your king's safe enough, and then you've got more space and
But I think there's really quite a lot to like for white here, because I'm not sure how black drums up counterplay either.
Interesting. Okay, and so we've just got one more move, black.
Queen e7. That may be a perfectly good move, but it doesn't feel like black is drumming up. And black's got to be careful that white doesn't have some, if she defends the d pawn, that she doesn't have some quick f5, f6.
Yeah.
So, I quite like this for Lara, I must say.
All right, let's head back to the tournament, and we'll see the next game. Which is Louise. Louise against Hanne Goossens.
Okay. Yeah, Louise had a tough start this morning because she met Machteldin very aggressive.
I sort of hesitate to show the game because Louise always says whenever I'm streaming and show her game, then I kind of jinx her. So I hope I'm not jinxing her.
No, we won't jinx. We'll try not to jinx.
Not going to jinx Louise. So d4.
And I think her opponent, is the player who beat Lara this morning.
Ah, okay.
As I say, from a slightly worse position, everything suddenly sort of started going very right. I'm pretty sure that's right. Well, you might want to check that.
So she's women's international master from Belgium.
Yep.
And c5. Okay, a bit different because we've been seeing lots of e4 games.
E4 c4 game I've seen in either tournament so far. There was one Catalan by a weird move order this morning, but I haven't seen many straight d4 c4s. So
b5.
Benko gambit.
Whoa, we've got a Benko. Yeah, you didn't think it would stay in a normal kind of d4 c4 opening for long. There'd have to be a gambit.
It still sort of is. It's just a rather it's one of the fun ones, isn't it?
It certainly is. I've tried it a couple of times. Have you ever played the Benko? I've tried it a few times, but I had this terrible game like way back against Marcus Osborne, and I was black, and I just got all my pieces tied to the back rank, and I didn't get the kind of counterplay you're meant to get in.
No, if your pieces are tied to the back rank, something's gone wrong.
It wasn't what I was after.
I think I'm right in saying the only time I played a pure Benko move order, I think I played a game where he declined and I ended up winning 5 pawns, which is kind of strange. But I'm trying to ask myself the question: why didn't I?
You did what? You won 5 pawns.
I won 5 pawns as black. Yeah, in some position I was 5 pawns up against some 2300, very decent player. But then for some reason I never did it again. Maybe it was too successful. I thought, I can't stand this. So. I don't know. It's a really strange thing. I don't entirely trust the Benko. But that doesn't mean I'm always, I've avoided it as white before now as well. One of the problems with the Benko, if you want it as a part of a repertoire, it's pretty easy to avoid. If white plays
Louise she's declined it, hasn't she? She hasn't taken.
This is one of the things I used to do a lot. B6. I liked B6. This can be played in a very aggressive way. One of the things white does now is sometimes follows up with E4 and F4 and things like that.
Oh, this is
one of the wonderful lines.
Kevin's saying B6 is a shear-off favourite. So that
B6 is just a good fun move. I mean, you can play it positionally, so you can sort of stick your horse to F3 and bring it round to C4, and just sort of use that square and try and push in the centre, because you haven't got any of the sort of development inconvenience that you have in the mainline Benko. But one of the things black used to do sometimes here was play A5 and try and go bishop A6 anyway, sort of determined to have their Benko gambit counterplay. But that just looks quite odd, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Hanny doesn't. She's going more developing.
Yeah, she's not worried about picking up that pawn at any time soon, which is fine.
No. I guess it's not running away.
Well, black needs to be careful that white can't suddenly go queen B3 threatening B7. But I think most of the time it's pretty hard to keep that pawn.
Right. So. Yeah. Okay, so knight C3, bishop G7, and E4. So as you say, the central pawn's coming in. D6 and knight F3. So she doesn't go F4.
Sorry, my children are going slightly crazy outside. Yeah, sorry, no, I think it was more the A5 line where white goes. I think F4 here is a little bit too ambitious. Okay, so one of black's big decisions is whether to take on B6 with the queen or the knight. You can sort of go knight D7 and take it, or you can go queen B6 and take it.
Yeah.
On the whole, I think the queen is better, but I'm not so sure. It's not easy, because then white gets knight D2 to C4 with tempo. So.
Black doesn't do either straight away. Black just castled.
Yeah, very cool about winning back this pawn.
Calmly.
She's in no hurry.
Yeah. So bishop E2, bishop G4, and now Louise brings the knight round.
That's interesting. I wonder why because if she'd played bishop G4 the previous move. So can we just see that? Because it might actually be quite interesting. Because you sort of think it looks slightly illogical to wait till bishop E2's on the board to play bishop G4. Because if you want to trade that bishop for the knight...
Do you mean now bishop G4 now?
Well, yeah, I was just thinking, but probably the answer is that then white goes queen A4 check or something like that. And if knight BD7, then maybe E5 is an issue.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of some reason why you would do it that way around, because, she's giving white this option of playing knight D2 and trading the bishops rather than the bishop for the knight. And I suspect something like that might be the answer. I mean, there could always be a queen B3 as well, because as I said, okay, but at least there's no fork with B7.
Oh, couldn't you just go... You can't go B7.
Well, you can, but let's go rook A7 and then I'm going to take it off. It might be better to take it with the rook and end up with an open B file. But you need sort of slightly strong nerves along the way. You need to realise the thing isn't, it's on the pawn's on the 7th rank, but it's not dangerous. It's not something you very often hear, is it?
Yeah, because you got like queen A4 check and knight B5. Like if you leave the pawn there for now.
You sound now you're starting to sound like somebody who has played or has looked at the Nescafe Frappe attack, aren't you? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I haven't heard that mentioned for years, but I have heard
crazy Benko Gambit stuff from your youth, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that really was crazy, but
was it very bad?
No, it wasn't as bad as the name might suggest, but it was. Yeah.
Nescafe Frappe attack. It makes you want to play it, doesn't it?
It kind of does.
Just the name by the name alone.
Yeah.
So how does Nescafe? Is it from here? The Nescafe?
No, it's miles back.
No.
it's yeah, it was really crazy. But it was the knight b5 which reminded me of it.
Yeah.
Because white sort of plays the entire position with a knight trapped on b5. Nothing can attack it. Well, no pawns can attack it, so it's only sort of trapped. Anyway, this one. So bishop e2, bishop g4. Castles, bishop e2, bishop g4 kind of makes sense, but I thought it was worth thinking about why it made sense. And then knight d2 makes sense to me. That's what I used to do in those kind of positions because I quite like that knight. I didn't want that one exchanged.
I have to decide whether to allow the monkey's bum. I'm going to allow it. Kevin's.
Yeah, but that's not one that. I hope Kevin's not saying that's one that really makes you want to play it.
No, I must admit, I'm not so keen by that one.
The monkey's bum is definitely a strange opening name. I'll go along with that. Yeah.
And queen takes. So finally, black.
She's taken the pawn. She has finally spotted it was on freezes.
She's got it back
in the nick of time. Well, actually, she could play knight d7, and if knight c4, take it back that way. But it's interesting. I mean, one of the things white can look at here, but probably isn't usually that strong, is trying to maneuver a knight to c6. But it's certainly something black needs to be aware of.
Okay, I was thinking she might put a knight on c4.
Oh, she's definitely headed to c4 with that knight from d2. Yeah. Because it also supports going e5, doesn't it? It's a very bad idea to base your repertoire on the opening names you like best. That is undoubtedly.
No, that's probably true, Bristol Pete.
That is extremely true.
But I tell you what, I did in shogi. I played an opening simply because of its name. And it worked really well. It was very good.
So you played what because of its name?
In shogi, there was this opening about the twin silvers attack or twin silvers setup of your pieces, and I played it just because it was about twins, and I've got twins, and yeah, it really worked really, really nicely. So because it was like just a day before the game, and I didn't have an opening prepped. So I think then
maybe if you play it for a good reason like that, then you're kind of more invested in it, aren't you? So,
indeed. Yeah. I thought I've got to get this to work.
Yeah, exactly. So that's probably not so bad. Okay, so castles.
Knight d7. Okay, and now Louise comes up with a very interesting move, actually, which is a4.
Yep.
And playing on the queen side. So,
well, the thing is, you've given black quite a nice square on b4, but probably not a nice square for the queen, because if the queen goes there, you're going to kick it with sort of a5 and rook a4. But your a pawn can be very useful for stopping knight b6, so it helps secure c4 for your knight. But like most of these things, it's kind of a trade of squares, and you need to figure out which one's going to be more important.
Yeah.
And it's not obvious to me which one is more important, but I know that some of the ways people play this line, a4 was kind of part of the setup. You can be looking for a5, knight c4, knight a4, and trying to use the b6 square even.
This is exactly what she's doing. So Louise put in knight on c4.
Yep.
Knight e8 and knight a4. So she's done exactly that.
Okay, but there's different. But again, here you've got to look at the pluses and minuses, because now it gives black the possibility of knight c7 to b5 to d4, which is a pretty good square for black as well. We've sent all our knights over towards the b6 square. She can try and use the d4 square. So
d4. So she's going to get there. Sorry, Peter. You said
knight c7 to b5 to d4.
Yeah.
To worry about, I think, but maybe it ends up on d4 and you just play around it. But I always get a bit nervous about knights on d4. I shouldn't tell people that, should I? But it's true. It's a very interesting position. I mean, the engine quite likes white, and it's probably right. It's a very. I like the way she's playing with a plan. It's a very coherent strategy, isn't it? It's kind of.
Yeah.
It's she's making use of b6. But
excellent. Okay, and let's also see. This one, which is Daria against
I'm glad you called her Daria. Hers is the name I was a bit worried about the pronunciation of, I have to say.
Are you going to give it a go?
Nope. I was waiting for you to give it a go.
Van der Voys.
No, I don't think that's going to cut it.
No. Okay.
Okay, so she's got a fairly classic
Should we do it from the start? Let's see.
Yeah, let's have a look from the start.
Okay, d4, d5, c4. There you go, Peter. You've got a d4, d5.
Yeah, no, it's been a much more d4-y round this round. Oh, okay.
Tarrasch sort of thing.
This is so trendy these days, this semi-Tarrasch stuff. I don't... Oh, not even a semi-Tarrasch. It's a sharp gambit line.
Queen d4.
Do you understand this one? I'm not sure I do, really. What's the appeal for black? I suppose the appeal is that if white doesn't go into the sharp lines with e4, then black ends up with some... will win back some tempi on the queen.
Yeah, knight c6 is going to come in, isn't it? Bishop g5, bishop e7.
I can't remember. There's some gambit along these lines which was either the Dutch gambit or some gambit with a Dutch name. It's appropriate for her to be playing this, but I don't remember exactly. I'm not sure it's exactly this one. I think the main line for white was something with e4 rather than bishop g5 and meeting knight c6 with bishop b5. But I think this is a good way of... It feels like a decent way to play as well.
So Machteld, of course, is the younger sister of Jordan. And how many are there in the family? There's quite a few.
Oh, that's a very good question.
I'm going to do it on the rating. Oh, no, I suppose you can't really tell from the rating.
They've got very...
they're all strong.
He has very impressive siblings and very high-powered parents as well, I think. And all the family is also rather awesome. And, of course... so
Jordan Lucas Machteld. Then...
Well, Jordan, of course, works for Magnus, doesn't he? Which is... by no means, which is no mean feat in general.
There's a Nana, a Peter, and a Tristan, but I don't know if any of those are part of that same family.
Yeah,
I think it might be just the three.
I mean, I think she's a very strong player in her own right. I mean, she's, as we see, very young.
Oh yes, for sure.
But I mean, she seems to me. I looked at her rating progress because I remembered I saw her in one of the junior tournaments maybe 3 years ago. And she was already rated over 2,000, I think, which was an absolutely stunning rating at that point. And I notice her rating is quite up. She seems quite inconsistent. She's sometimes amazingly strong, and then she'll have a tournament which looks, substantially weaker. And she's had this kind of zigzag progress over the years.
I guess that's pretty normal at that age, though.
I guess it is up to a point. It looked
because you gain also a lot of points
extreme, but I'm sort of when I've seen her on good days, she feels like she ought to be kind of 2,300 or something. She really does look very impressive. So I don't know. I think she's a player with an enormous amount of potential. I think
for sure.
I'm far from the only person who thinks that, from what I've heard. But, and of course, it's as we said, it's not a bad chess playing family to be part of. So this would be my question. If I was going to play one of these kind of gambits with black, you learn all the sharp theory, and then you also have to say, if white just plays normal moves like bishop g5 and e3, what's this position like at the end? And it's not obvious to me that it's an especially great IQP for black, but maybe it is. Let's see.
Yeah. Waterford saying Nigel Povar is playing Dana Mirza in the next round. Okay.
Oh no.
All right, bishop e2, bishop e6, castles, knight c6 hitting the queen, queen d3, queen d7.
Well, I think there was even an all-English pairing in round 1 in Reykjavik on one of the boards. English players. It was probably impossible to avoid at some point.
I'm sure it'll happen. But it's funny traveling all that way and then playing someone you'd play in England.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm sure they were delighted. Yep. Okay, so what do you think of this? Is this a good IQP for black, or is it just sort of normal?
Well, I was thinking kind of normal.
Well, you win this tempo on the queen, but I kind of slightly think, so what? I think that white's pieces are kind of okay, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, there are some IQP positions where you take on d4 and then you end up going back to f3 anyway. So white is even sort of a tempo up on that, assuming d3 is a decent square for the queen. It seems to me like, black's okay, but it's not. You have to like IQPs.
If you're the one with the isolated queen pawn, you normally want to generate an attack, don't you? To kind of and keep it in the middle game.
Yeah, you want to keep it in the middle game. Although when you're black, you sometimes just want to generate a little bit of pressure. You don't necessarily need to be trying to give checkmate, but yeah.
Yeah. So now, so Magtout's the higher rated in this game. So she probably, I imagine she doesn't necessarily want to just kind of go for a draw, even in a black game.
Well, I imagine she's very much norm hungry. I mean, she's very, very, very strongly one of the players in contention for a norm, I would think, if she's in good form.
Peter, Kevin's asking if you fancy the world senior teams.
Yeah.
He's not sure.
I kind of, I'm still in denial about it all, actually.
You are. I'm playing in it this time. Come on.
Are you? Are you not in denial?
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
And Mickey, and I think lots of people. We're going to have a women's team. Hopefully, I need to register and do all the proper things, though. I've been being chased. But yeah, I think Ingrid's going to captain.
So is Mickey going to be playing?
Yeah, it's going to be good. It's going to be really good.
Okay.
Yeah. Think about it properly. It's going to be really good.
Can I be in denial for a bit before I think about it properly?
Are you denying you're over 50? That's
not really. No. Just sort of still wanting to play in open tournaments rather than.
You can still do that too.
Well, I suppose I can still do that too. Yeah. No, I'll think about it, Kevin. I'll think about it.
Mm-hmm.
They may not want me in the first team anyway. That would be depressing.
Kevin, thank you. He's saying I'm not old enough. There you go.
Oh, what a charmer.
What a charmer. Unfortunately, I am. Yeah. Rook d8. It's all public knowledge how old everyone is anyway because of the rating list, isn't
There's no hiding it.
Yeah. Knight d4. Rook c8 and rook c1. Okay, so kind of, I suppose, sort of standard moves, isn't it? White's blockading this.
It is, and if you look at the clock times, she's now used nearly 7 minutes. It's because it kind of at the point where standard moves have to give way to deciding what you're going to do with them, I guess. It feels like one of those moments where you decide what comes next.
And what does come next? Is it?
I don't know. That's why she's taken this long. I mean, 95 must be one possibility, but I'm a little bit suspicious about that. I mean, I don't think she wants to take on d4. I mean, she can. Yeah, the queen. You can't dislodge the queen from d4 in a way you would want to. So she doesn't want to take on d4. She might want to. She has to constantly also question whether White's ever taking on c6 or conceivably also on e6. Although I think in most positions, knight takes c6, f takes strengthens Black's centre unless White can follow up with e4. But again, she needs to check that White can't follow up with e4 sometimes as well. I don't know. That's why I'm not crazy about this for Black, because it's not obvious to me what the plan is, really. Knight e5 is possible. I mean, you can play a move like h6 because White is all... But it's also possible that f4 isn't a bad square for that bishop. So.
Still going to be another 10 moves before this livens up, I think.
Well, it's full of interest, but it's rather sort of, it's not very... Yes, it's not going to be fireworks. Not unless somebody...
Not yet, but I reckon it might do that in a bit. Okay, let's see the next one. Okay, and we already saw Zoe, didn't we? So let's see that one again and then head back to the other tournament. So I think we've seen everyone, but this one was this bishop's game where they kind of swapped off all the knights.
And she's played your rook b1 move, hasn't she?
She played rook b1 with the idea of developing this bishop from c1, which I guess she'll do in due course.
Who was it? I'm sure I was reading someone the other week, and they said the best way to get a handle on the quality of knights as pieces is to try playing positions without any. And you do kind of miss them, actually.
Interesting.
I kind of think knights are rather wonderful, and sometimes you do miss them. I'm not sure bishop e6 is the world's most active move. Like I said, I would have been interested in trying to go rook e8 and perhaps threatening bishop a6 or something.
Well, I can tell you what, when Ellen was playing that exchange chess, she really liked the knights, but then it is a different kind of game, and those knights...
I think the knights are particularly evil in exchange chess, aren't they?
Yeah, particularly evil.
Bishop e6. I mean, bishop e6 sort of... It feels to me like a piece which... Okay, it defends the d pawn. That's clearly in its favour, but if you're going to try and activate the piece, then you want to play d4. But obviously, when you activate that piece, then you're blocking the other bishop. So, as usual with those things, it needs to be done with a degree of care. And I thought if black did want to play b4, then it might d4. Sorry, then it might be better to have the bishop coming to a6. And on the other hand, black doesn't want a situation where she played d4 and then exchanges the light square bishops, and white blockades that pawn easily. So tricky. But I thought rook e8 looked more flexible, unless she was worried about some bishop a4 or something, which is possible.
See, to me, this game as well looks quite sort of quiet and drawish.
Well, there's this lack of horses, isn't it? I mean, this is horsey chess.
Horsey chess? What's horsey chess doing?
How can you be called horsey chess and then exchange?
Why has she swapped off the horses?
Absolutely preposterous.
That's what we've got to know. Yeah. But hasn't Danny's been giving her some advice to play more positionally? I think I read that. I read that on I don't know, Twitter or Facebook or something, and then she won a nice positional game at the Europeans. So maybe she's trying without the horses.
You can play positionally with the horses.
It's true. It's all true.
I think you can. I'm sure we do sometimes.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, you're right. This one isn't quite on fire, although the next few moves will be quite interesting.
Okay, we will see. We're going to come back. So we're going to first of all switch back to. Now, have I lost my link to the other tournament? I might have to just kind of find it again.
You're on Reykjavik. That's no good.
Oh, Reykjavik. Well, we can sidetrack a little bit. So live tournaments. I just need to do a bit of scrolling, I think, here. Sorry, everybody. I had them both open in the window, but I think maybe they. Here we go. Easy. Here it is.
Kevin makes another very wise point there.
What does Kevin say?
He said, as long as Danny.
Okay, Danny's betting on the horses. Now that is a very good point.
That is a very sound concern.
Okay, let's check back in then on Lanyao against Sarah Longson. So this was this very interesting e4 opening and 2 knights. And we got to about, where did we get to, Peter?
We got to knight g3, I think.
Yeah, knight g5 and about here, knight g3 that Lanyao's played. Hello, Poker Ram. How's Zoe doing? Zoe's in a bishop ending. She's horsey chess has exchanged off the horses. We were just
bishop ending. There's still rooks and queens and loads of bishops on the board.
I just noticed the bishops, rooks and queens. Yeah, everything except the horses.
She's in a knightless middle game.
Yes, indeed.
Which is not what you expect from horsey chess, as we said.
No. Okay, so Sarah's coming in with knight b4. We were talking about.
Oh, I didn't consider that. It's probably a good idea. I mean, well, it depends on whether white can play bishop e4 and just let it sit there. But
yeah, so bishop e4. I was looking at bishop e4. That's didn't play it actually.
Didn't she?
Bishop e4 definitely would be something you'd consider.
Because if bishop e4, then you got, then you're going to kick the knight on b4 next move, unless there's something. I imagine there must be some quite specific idea after bishop e4. But I'm struggling to imagine what it might be.
I mean, she might want a castle in f5, but as we've said earlier, that's still not enough pieces.
I think castles, you just play a3 probably, or
I just move the knight back. Yeah,
you could play c3, but I think a3.
Okay, so I'm not sure then.
Can you just see if the engine likes bishop?
Shall we? Let's go.
I don't want to resort to the engine too often, but every now and again.
Let's do computer analysis then.
Oh, you can check.
No. Sorry, that's not what I want to do.
You can check the engine on the main
open
board.
gaming analysis.
Oh, okay. You could do that as well.
Let's do that. Okay, so here we go, and we were looking at after knight g3 and knight b4. So this was the position we've got to.
Yeah. So bishop e4. I mean, the problem would be if black had some f5, but it does look a bit unlikely that she does.
Did you wanted to see?
Well, I just want to see what the engine thought.
Engine analysis, right?
Black should do here, because it just seems to me.
So I'm going to put. Oh wait, how do I?
I mean, you can get that just on the main board. You don't need to come to analysis for the engine.
Oh, okay. Shall I just go back? There's analysis.
We can probably get it either way.
Sorry.
If you do analysis on this board, it probably wants us to do the work. I don't want that.
Oh my goodness!
Don't get involved in any of that sort of thing.
What a thought.
Well, indeed.
Okay, so let's just play it on here. So we were just going back to
just to where she went to, because she allowed knight takes d3, and whilst
then
you
we were
often
just going to
do,
look at this move here.
I couldn't see why you need to here. Does the engine have some
computer analysis back on? So it's still, I think, just thinks white's better. So castles or g6 or h5.
After castles, I wanted to just kick the knight away, but maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels to me like white should have kept that bishop. I mean, as we said, there are lots of positions where you do have to let black take on d3, but that doesn't mean you want to when you can avoid it. I'm a little bit baffled by that. That feels to me definitely like what Laniel should have done. Oops, I'm getting the sun brightly on my face.
Okay. You're like an angel.
Well, that would be the only similarity.
So, yeah, she didn't do that. She castled.
No.
And
that really, then knight b4 is what you would play if you thought white.
Yeah, and then Sarah wasted no time and just just whipped it off. C takes and castled herself.
Yeah, now it looks. I mean, some of these positions where white has the doubled d pawns, you kind of feel white has more compensation for them than this. So white still has a pawn, but otherwise, black's position looks healthy enough to me.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine this isn't that different from some of the main lines in this where black does go knight f4 and knight takes on d3 there.
Yeah, not immensely different. But I'm trying to think of ones. I'm sure there are ones where the queen is on f3 as well, but it's not.
Yeah.
So rookie one makes sense. Otherwise, otherwise f5 is probably coming as well.
Bishop a6. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I mean, don't you? I mean, there's two things about that make me a little suspicious. One is that I don't really like deserting the f5 square to that extent, because knight f5 always looks a bit scary. I mean, it's just a sort of scary move in all chess positions, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, that's true.
And the other thing is that, do you really want to trade? I mean, can you not try to play against the d pawn without trading your e pawn for it? I mean, of course, rook e1 was the right move because the e pawn isn't that easy to defend. But I wonder if black could have tried to. I don't know.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's still white still needs to find a way to do this.
Well, the thing is, right, white also has to get white's pieces out on the queen's side, that bishop on c1 and the rook.
Well, that's always quite a big part of the.
Everyone's pieces are a little bit like, because the black knight is still offside on a5, but the white bishop's
at home. Yeah, I mean, one thing that with the pawn that weak on d3, black can sometimes consider sort of knight b7 to c5 to d3 can be quite a nice route for it, but.
Yeah,
but you got to watch out for queen takes d6.
Queen takes
d6 along the way. So I don't. You're right. I mean, white's pieces are often still at home in this line. But okay, black needs a good answer to rook takes e5. There probably is one. Oh, we'll find out.
Well, she actually played knight c3 first.
Okay.
And then we get. I guess it just transfers. It takes this way.
Yeah, it's just interesting if it gave black another chance to defend the e pawn, but maybe not. Okay, so black still gets some.
And bishop g6.
Okay.
b3, and then so Laniel.
By the way, worth saying that black probably had to put the bishop somewhere because white was threatening to take e7 or e7 or a5 and take on d3.
Yeah, okay.
So I think it's not an entirely voluntary bishop retreat.
Yeah.
Bishop f6. This sort of.
This looks fine for black, though.
It feels like more compensation than I originally thought she should get. But as we said, allowing knight takes d3 was a bit odd. But so rook e2,
rook e8. And this is where we are.
Okay, so I guess one thing you want to ask if you're white in a position like this, can I play healthy moves like bishop b2 if I want? Is that.
So bishop b2, then you're not losing your d pawn or anything like that.
I'm not losing my d pawn. On the other hand, I'm not quite sure what I'm achieving because the
But it's
knight
like
on
bishop
c3 is still
d3,
pinned,
I
isn't it?
suppose.
Sorry?
Bishop d3, you could.
You can't do bishop d3 now because you'll lose it to the overworked queen again.
You're true. Yeah. So bishop b2.
I mean, you could take on e2 maybe and then go bishop d3.
Okay.
That's possible, but I'm not sure.
You haven't achieved too much, so.
Well, it might be more sensible to develop the queen so that when white does have to play rook takes e8, then it's a.
Just what, like queen out to d3 already?
No, I'm not sure actually. That's also possible, but does black want to change queens? I don't know. I would have thought on balance not, but maybe in some positions it's fine.
Pair, doesn't she?
Yeah, the compensation is more to do with white just struggling to unravel, which might be queen 2 without queens on.
Because it's still a pawn for that bishop pair.
It is still a pawn. I mean, is white ever trying to go bishop b2 and then knight a4? Because you kind of feel like trading those dark square bishops might not be a bad idea. But then you also think that might lead black's queen to get very active. Queen d4 or something will become a possibility. Tricky.
Okay.
I mean, I think I sort of in principle agree with the engine that it's some compensation, but not necessarily absolutely full.
Not
but
enough for the pawn.
Yeah, but it may be enough. Maybe enough in practical play for the pawn.
Okay,
that's interesting. That's I kind of have some sympathy with that because bishop b2, the only real plan that came with that was knight a4, whereas here the bishop may have other ideas.
Oh, people might not know Lan Yao, by the way. So Lan Yao, she grew up in China and has been studying at university in London, and I think studying history. I could be wrong about that. And a very strong chess player, of course.
Yes.
Which I don't know how old she, maybe like 20 or something years old. But a very good, a lovely addition to our English women's chess players.
No, absolutely, yes. When did she change federations? Do you know? Is it a recent thing?
I don't know exactly the timing, but I think she is playing for England.
Well, she certainly seems to be playing under.
I think she is. So. Yeah.
Yes. No, that's good.
Yes. Cool. Okay. Let's look at Elżbieta against Salomea. And where did we get up to with this one? Now we knew as Elżbieta was about.
We were very early. We were kind of bishop d2 or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So bishop d2, queen c7. Okay, and we get a knight b5.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, with all these knight b5s, the danger is that what happens if you don't find a good follow-up, black just moves the queen and then goes a6 and gains some time. But if the queen has to go back where it was, you haven't lost real time anyway. It's interesting. I can't immediately see what the follow-up is, but the checks are all prevented by the bishop on d2, and the queen on e3 kind of stops queen b6. So I have some sympathy with it for those reasons.
Yeah.
But is she, after a6, is she going to send it back somewhere else? Or is she just going to claim that sort of tempo-wise the move is neutral? Anyway, it's an interesting idea in an already very interesting position, actually.
After only 7 moves, queen b8, and then white castles long.
Okay.
And b6.
Yeah, so what was she planning after a6, though? Was she just going knight c3 again, or was she going knight d?
Yeah, so a6. I guess you have to just drop back. Oh, Lan Yao's known as Lisa. I didn't know that, Kevin. Okay, from Shanghai. I was chatting with her. She was playing also at the London Chess Classic, where she did very well.
Ah, yes. One more idea. Sorry to be boring, because obviously a lot of White's ideas in this position are quite fun, but it's also there were some end games where Queen G3 is quite a good move in these E6 Sicilians as well. And it does occur to me that after White could have possibly considered that even instead of castles long. That would be a way to, give knight b5 a bit of kick.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it may be that, and maybe that's sort of a threat now. But if White had done it last move, even just d6 might be fine.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Takes e4, but so it's another dimension that sometimes White doesn't have to go all in for attack in these things, but can.
Yeah. So I guess let's see if the computer was wanting a6 here. A6, knight c3, the computer says.
It was, but it's not terribly urgent. b6 strikes me as slightly strange, because I would have thought you'd only do that I would have thought you still, in principle, want to go a6 and b5. But
okay.
I guess she wants bishop c5, but then she may find that queen g3 is a better move than she realizes.
Yeah. Bishop c5, yeah. That must be what she's aiming for.
I suppose.
Bishop d3. Bishop c5, exactly. Okay, and White actually chose not queen g3, but queen g5.
Yeah, I like the move queen g5. I'll say no more than that about it. This is kind of appealing move to me.
Kevin's asking, is Malcolm sponsoring the tournament? I actually don't know the answer to that. Yes, it's Goodfield. So this is there's in fact 2 tournaments going on. So there's this one, the ECF Women's event, and there's also Lauren DaCosta's She Plays to Win event. And yeah, no, it's very nice opportunities for norms, because it's been such a long time since there's been a sort of like a closed tournament like this, opportunities for WIM norms in England. And now there's 2 going on at once, so it's fantastic. And Malcolm just announced that I think there's a 3rd one on the way.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I just saw it on Twitter today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. Yeah, so hopefully some of these players there'll be a chance for some to take advantage, get some norms, and get their titles. Okay. Because actually, as well as WIM norms, some of them would, if you get to 2100, then that's Women's FIDE Master as well. So there's that opportunity too. So castles and f4. Well, we don't have dull games in this event. So
no, this one's very exciting, eh? So what would you be looking for as black here? I might have a glance at whether something like d5 meeting e5 with knight e4 is worth looking at, just because, if this attack is scary, you might want to trade off some of the scary pieces, and that might not be a bad way of doing it. I mean, even if you end up with a slightly weak e-pawn, if you get the bishop pair and some light squares, you might have some fun with d5, and if e5, then knight e4.
Yeah,
that would be one possibility. If black just sort of carries on with routine development, I can imagine that queen suddenly being really well placed on h4 or something, and causing quite a lot of problems. So,
bringing in a whole load more kingside pawns, like the g pawn as well.
Well, I don't know. It's always the thing with attacks. Do you need pawns, or can you do it with pieces? I'd be a bit tempted by some kind of e5 and queen h4 here. Just see how black's going to defend against the pieces before I.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because then that knight's out the way. Yeah, okay, so the immediate threat is e5 then.
Well, certainly a move I would be giving some attention to if I was black, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
What do you think? I mean, d5, e5, knight e4 looks like quite an appealing way to do it, because although white's got some quite threatening pieces, there were 1 or 2 undeveloped ones as well, like the knight on g1.
Yeah, d5 does look like the move.
Well, I don't know. On the other hand, white's got this, if you allow white to play e5 and you can't challenge it, then maybe the knight on b5 suddenly makes sense, because it might hop to d6 at some point. So
yeah,
it's really tricky. It's a very unusual position, and they're obviously quite tricky to assess, because there's lots of things you're not used to having to worry about.
So what about, because if black just did d6 to try and slow down e5.
Yeah.
You kind of feel like that bishop on c5 doesn't have so many avenues. But you could just like go knight f3 for white and...
Yeah, I mean, I'd be a bit nervous. I mean, one unusual possibility, which white doesn't have here because of bishop e3 check, I think, but might be in the position after something like g6, is bishop to c3. You don't often see them go to that diagonal in conjunction with the queen g5, but you can see there's some threats attached to that.
For sure.
But you're right. If you play d6 in general, that bishop on c5 starts to...
Can black play e5 herself?
Yeah, black can also play e5 herself, yeah. I was wondering about that too, but, well, I'm certainly not going to take it. I'm probably just going to go knight f3, and then black has to... Yeah, e5 is possible for black, but I'm a little bit suspicious. I think I'd be most tempted by d5.
Yeah.
But we'll see what she comes up with. I mean, black can also throw a6 in first before any of these things, so...
Oh, the computer is actually not liking it for white too much. I was thinking it was kind of... But maybe it is d5.
Is d5 the move that the computer doesn't like?
No, a6.
No, knight b4. Well, d5 as well, but a6 and knight b4. Yeah. I failed to consider, but the idea is the same. Get rid of that d3 bishop, which feels like it's the one most likely to cause damage, but yes. Yeah, I didn't think about that in conjunction with a6, because knight b4 immediately, you would just take it off and then go e5 and get on with the attack, I think. But
yeah,
if you go a6 first, you have knight b4 as well. Yeah, I mean, it's a white setup is interesting and unusual, but there may be reasons that it's unusual.
Alessia is ex Curtsy is cheering for Alessia in the chat. We'll see her game in a while.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we did have a look in already. Let's look at. Let's just go down the list.
Wow.
Madara against Sheila. Okay, so Madara's throwing her kingside pawns up the board. Right, we left that. Where was that? It was probably quite early on still. Where did we get to?
It was very early on. Black had just gone knight c6. It was just we were discussing whether white was going to go bishop e2 or play h3 and bishop d3 or something. Bishop e2 looked the most normal, yeah. And bishop f5, okay.
Castles e6, knight e5.
Yep.
Takes and bishop takes. Rook c8. Bishop d3. So Madara's trading off those light squared bishops. e7 and f4. Okay.
Ooh, f4 looks a bit... I'm not sure white has all the backup you want for going f4, f5. It's sort of... I mean, it makes sense exchanging off the light square bishop in order to try and play f4, f5. But the trouble with moves like f4 is if you don't get the f5 in, then you're going to wish the pawn was back on f2 sometimes.
Yeah.
I quite like black's position already. I think she's showing
because of this. We were talking about this knight on c3.
Well, she's showing the downside of all these knight c3 positions. Again, there are some lines with knight c3 where white later goes knight somewhere and then plays c3 herself, and you kind of want to. You often want that knight not to be there. I think that's why I would never play two knight c3. There's so many positions where you want it not to be there. I mean, structure-wise, we're already in Keith's kind of minority attack territory, aren't we? Keith would be excited for black here already.
Now, Sheila, of course, is a very experienced player. She's been the, I guess, British women's champion before, and she has played internationally a lot of times. I think she is another member of the seniors team playing for England a bit later this year. And she's a very solid player. So she kind of it's quite hard to get a win against Sheila. She kind of just knows these positions inside out, I suppose. What does she like? Does she like being attacked, I wonder? Like, will she like?
I don't think that many. I mean, she likes fairly simple positional play. I mean, she's not someone who's liable to complicate the game radically herself.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm not sure. I think it's a fairly rare breed who actually like being attacked. you might think of players as kind of positional / defensive, but when they get brutally attacked, there's only a small minority who really enjoy that, I think. Which is one of the reasons that people often get away with unsound attacks, isn't it? It's just hard to defend.
Because Madara is she's keeping on going.
G6 is the right response, I'm sure. You want, if white's going to get F5 in, you want to make sure it's at a price, I think. I think G6 is right, but obviously G6 and castles, now you need to make sure that F5 isn't immediately scary, but I expect knight G4 is actually fine right now. No, if F5, black could just take on G4.
Just take on G4.
Because there are enough pieces defending the F6 square, and the knight is threatening the bishop, so all the things that involve extra time probably aren't going to work. So
actually Madara just takes off.
Yeah, so then she takes... So she's gaining time vis-a-vis the threat to G4, but she's ensuring that when she does go F5, it's not going to have the same impact that it would if that bishop was still on the board, I think.
Yeah. So I guess she's just moved the knight, which
again shows she also doesn't want... she's finding it irritating there, because it's harder to defend D4 for a start with that knight on C3. But I think black's position is very sort of harmonious and coherent. And Queen B6, I think she played,
Queen B6.
Or just start sort of...
So just looking at these pawns.
hinting that white's queenside is a little weak. I mean, white really doesn't want to play B3, but she doesn't particularly want to look really passive on B1 either. So she can try to sacrifice. Did she play rook B1? Yeah.
She has played rook B1. So she is kind of pressuring these pawns, nice and quiet game and just sort of playing it.
She also,
what about like I see. If rook C4, you just white. I suppose white's going to next go C3 and just
then white can just go C3. But I mean, C3 also means that ultimately black has this plan of playing B5 to B4 and pressuring the pawn. Real classic,
your classical minority attack, of course. Yes. Oh, so rook B1. Plucro is saying Queen A5 for.
Well, Queen A5 is. I was just wondering about that. Another way of sort of
A5 threatening A2, and then you do get your B5 in. Yeah.
You do, although if you go Queen A5, A3, B5, C3, you're quite a long way from getting B4 in, and ideally you might not have your queen on. If you went Queen C7 now immediately, for example, if white plays C3, B5 is still possible, I think. I mean, generally speaking, it's just more pleasant for black, because I don't think F5 when it comes is going to be very threatening. White needs more minor pieces to make that very threatening. So
we're kind of thinking queen moves away somewhere with tempo, and then B5.
Probably, but I mean, things like doubling on the, doubling rooks on the C file isn't a silly plan either, as long as you've got F5. I mean, you've got to always just keep in mind that F5 may come with a bit of a punch. If you take a rook off the F file or something, then you can't meat F5 with, for example, some move where the bishop is going to be undefended.
Yeah, actually, what are we going to do? What's what's black going to do against F5?
Well,
say it happens.
There are various things you could do. One thing would be to meet it with E5 if you've got a rook on F8, and if F takes G6, you just take with the F4.
Yeah, moment just wins, doesn't it? Yeah,
that's probably not bad. Sometimes, if none of that's possible, you might have bishop G5 just to. And then you need to make sure F6 isn't scary, but if it's not, then the bishop could be enhanced on that diagonal. I just don't think white's got enough pieces to really back it up, but it probably does mean leaving the rook on F8 for a bit isn't a silly idea.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I like Sheila's position overall, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of fight left, clearly.
Let's see, Audrey and Camwell.
Oh, wow.
So where did we get up to with Audrey and Camwell? We had...
This is exactly the sort of scenario
we didn't see much of this at all. We were only up to here, weren't we?
We were up to here, but
this is quite a lively game.
Has happened.
So knight h6 was what we were predicting, and you were saying about this line with knight f7. I haven't seen this thing. So knight f7.
Yeah.
Takes here, and queen h5. Yes, okay. King g8. This is probably highly theoretical. Maybe that's why Camwell was having such a thing, because
I don't think it's very highly theoretical. I think it used to be regarded as just not very good. It may have had a revival for white, but it's a bit hard to see. I don't massively like King G8. I think King F8 feels more logical. aside from anything else, because if white wants the position with king f8, they can force it with queen d5 check. It seems slightly odd to give your opponent, play a move where your opponent could force it back to the move.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And, also after queen takes c5, I'm not sure that I want to then to play d6 and give white a queen d5 tempo. I think, you need to overcome the psychological barrier that queen takes c5 is check and just go d6 and queen f6 and bishop e6 and stuff. And black's position, everything about black's position looks nice to me, apart from the king being, out on the loose. But
so yeah, I mean, actually, Audrey did not go queen takes c5 straight away. Are you're thinking maybe?
No, I think we're about to reach the same position. So maybe king g8. Maybe king g8 makes sense because it forces white to play the good move queen d5 if we decide that the king is better on g8 than f8. I'm just not quite so sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we end up with the same position we would have had anyway.
d6.
d6.
And Audrey goes back to h5 as it happens.
And then, we've got opposite coloured bishops, which sort of feels like it favours the attacker in general. So you think that, if black's king has had to move, maybe it's black who's going to be the attacker. I'm not so sure. I think that black has quite nice central control and decent pieces. But of course, white can try to show that that's wrong. The thing is, how do you attack that king? Do you go f4? I mean, you probably do, but just one go f4.
I do, yeah.
Because if you do, then e4 becomes a bit more of a target, doesn't it? And you sort of think you gain one thing, you lose another kind of thing.
And bishop g5 and that sort of thing.
Yeah, which might be a very good reason. Did black play queen f6 here? It feels like a good move.
Yeah, queen f6.
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's possible also to play bishop e6, I expect, because if bishop g5, you could play queen e8 then, and the exchange of queens wouldn't be so bad.
Pluko has a plan of h4 for white, h4 and rook h3. I guess
that's an interesting question. I just wonder how you persuade that bishop on c8 not to be ready to take it.
Oh, I see.
If you could find a way to do that, then I'd be very much in favour of this plan. But I think it's going to be hard to dislodge that bishop precisely because it is opposite colour bishops. And if you ever play g4, then black has sort of knight e5, and I definitely vote for white's king being in trouble rather than black's. If you could do it, it would be great, but I don't know how you. So maybe you go a4 and rook a3. How about that? That's probably
interesting. Very funny.
That might be the logical response to that, and then you don't have to worry
but
about.
Could Canwell do knight b4 at some stage and try and take on c2 check?
Well, yeah, I think black is almost anything you think of for white. Black is quite quick in response because black is ahead in development, and I'm sure that certainly was the essence of why this line was thought not to be very good classically. But everything's different now. The engine probably thinks it's okay or something. So. Actually, the engine does.
I'm also wondering if Canwell have Audrey and Canwell played before. I don't know whether they. I'm imagining.
If you noticed, after queen h5, the engine is giving plus 0.53. So maybe this is one of those things that the engine has revived.
The engine likes this. Yes, you're right. So
it likes it lightly, at least. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like plus 0.94 now, and so the engine is wanting castles and sensible.
Just c3.
Which I suppose is the thing to do. Yeah.
Yes, interesting. So I wonder if the engine didn't like queen f6 or if it just felt... No, maybe it just thinks the whole thing is fine for white. It's possible.
Yeah. Interesting. Bishop
yeah, it's funny, the engine, as I've said before, it does open up as many new vistas as it closes down old ones, and thank goodness it does.
Yeah.
Bishop g5.
G5. Queen f7. So Canwell's kind of... Oh, I've just looked at the computer evaluation of the next one. Queen f7. Canwell is looking to swap.
Oh, my word.
And it says queen d1 -4.
Oh, dear. Queen g6 looks like a very strong move. Attacking the bishop, attacking e4, and hassling g2.
Okay.
Could that be a bit of a disaster for white?
Queen g6. Yeah. So you can't defend both the bishop and the pawn.
I mean, you could play queen f3 check and then move the bishop.
Yeah.
But I guess that runs into something. maybe some knight e5 or rook. I guess you might move the king back to the centre and then you have rook f8 or knight e5 or whatever. I expect it is queen g6 that's the issue, unless I'm missing some. Is there some big tactic there? It must be queen g6, mustn't it?
All right, I'm going to look for you. Queen g6, yeah. Okay.
And then moving the king back to e8, as I said, I think that's important. And then the rook has. It's possible that she looked at queen g6, but after queen f3 check, thought, because you kind of think naturally in terms of king g8, moving the king further towards safety, and that might not work so well. So I can see how you might end up not playing that, although king e8 and with rook f8 coming does feel pretty tempting to me, I must say. That's a pity for Camwell.
But I mean, there's still a So
h6, yeah. This gives white a chance to
h6 and bishop back. So okay, so black's ahead on development, it would seem.
Something about it. It always feels like black's a bit ahead on development anyway, but it feels it's more clear cut now, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this must be quite nice for black. The question is how to use that development.
Yeah.
Is it still queen g6 maybe?
Could be. Camwell's gone.
Again, I mean, you can see why you want to take the king out of the way of the check.
Yeah.
But, it also feels now like the engine... Sorry, like white should probably do what the engine was talking about before. Probably castles and then trying to play c3 as the quickest way to get these pieces out.
Yeah.
I don't think you're trying to prove black's d4 pawn is weak. You're just trying to get the bits out and see what...
Actually, Audrey has... She's gone c3.
Oh, okay. I was wanting to castle first just in case queen c4 or something was ever awkward, but it probably doesn't make that much difference. But there is still queen g6 to consider in all the positions, isn't there?
And actually, Camwell did it now.
Okay. But I guess here white can actually come with castle now?
Yeah. White did.
Yeah. So bishop h3 is met by queen f3, and I think that actually that's good enough to make bishop h3 not a good move, I think. Yeah.
Yes. It was, however, played. So maybe... So could Camwell instead... Could she just take the pawn? Or is that too dangerous? Queen takes e4, maybe rook e1. Yeah.
I mean, it also feels a little bit naughty grabbing pawns with your king slightly exposed, but it may well be. It's one of those things where the engine might tell you it's okay, but I might not be that inclined to do it anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so bishop h3, queen f3.
Yep.
And the bishop back to e6.
Okay. I mean,
thank you for the follow, Shogi Lifestyle. I know who Shogi Lifestyle is. That is Michael Green, who also plays chess.
I see now Camwell's idea. She was taking the queen to f3 so that white wouldn't be threatening c takes d4 anymore. So if she just played bishop e6, white would have had queen c takes d4.
Right,
so yeah, she's dragged the queen away from supporting that idea. The question is, how does white...
Okay, so white needs to develop these pieces still.
Yeah.
Bishop's out. So you, if you do take... You want to kind of get that pawn off c3, don't you? But if you do take on d4, the knight gets really active, so you don't want to do that, really.
Well, I assume rook d1 isn't the move, although it's possible.
Kevin played Michael when he was a nipper. Hi, Shogi Lifestyle. Pete, he's read your book, Peter.
So, oh dear, have you found my book harrowing? I'm not quite sure how to react to that. I'm delighted you're reading my book, and I hope it's not too harrowing.
Thanks for the follow, Rookshuk. Okay. Oh, actually, Audrey did take on d4.
I mean, if it's any consolation, by the way, you can probably tell from reading the book it was fairly harrowing for me at times as well. my own psychological failings came pretty much into the fore. So, yeah, what should white play here? Any idea?
Well, I guess you kind of just want to get your pieces out,
Is
don't
rook d1 a silly move? Because bishop g4 can be met by queen g3.
Ooh.
And I just wonder, it looks
It
really
feels
weird.
a little bit dangerous, doesn't it? But
it's probably not something you'd play, but it's something you might commentate about.
Yes.
It's a move which it's got some quite solid quality. But I mean, so even something like king h7, you then still have to defend against the threat of bishop g4.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's very interesting. But taking on d4, it feels odd to invite the knight in to attack the queen. But on the other hand, it's one way of getting on with it, isn't it?
Here we go.
Here we go. And queen d3. Yep, that must be the
right. Yeah, of course you can't go queen g3.
You certainly can't.
You certainly can't because of knight e2 check with the nasty fork.
You can't go to most other places because of either knight e2 or knight c2 at some point, I would have thought so.
Actually, it's true. That knight's really nice there. I wonder if Kamal will just try and keep that knight there. It is nice.
That's the thing. If you keep it with c5, because, okay, there's bishop e3 to attack it, but then bishop h3 becomes a serious thing again. So, yes.
So maybe she can just go c5, leave the knight in the middle.
I would want to leave that knight there if I can.
Ah, Shogi, you know Lisa. You know Lisa. Well, I didn't know she was called Lisa, but I was chatting with her at the London Chess Classic at Christmas. Okay. All right. So this, yes, still lots of play left in this game, and we'll see how this one goes. So let's move on to the next one, which is Olivia against Yao Yao.
Okay.
Who is the wife?
Olivia seems to have netted a pawn.
Adam.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was saying, I'm losing all my names. I think it's Adam. Adam's the finance director, ECF finance director, the wife.
It is indeed the wife of Adam
Ashton.
And the mother of one of our most promising, very young female players as well.
Give her a shout. What's her name?
Alana.
Alana, yes.
Yes. And I gather there are younger ones too who also play chess. I don't know yet how well they play chess, but I think enthusiastically.
It's a family to watch out for.
It is certainly a family to watch out for. Well, Adam, you describe him as finance director. He's a pretty strong player as well, isn't he?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yes, he is, isn't he? He's title player. Yeah,
he certainly is. He's an I
am. Amazing. Yeah.
All right. So where did we get well for Black? Because she's a pawn down, and although White has these double B pawns, there's an argument that with the the sort of tension between the rooks, Black's queenside pawns are probably almost as weak as White's. It's not, that A6 pawn can easily. Well, it's more easy to prove that
is worried about the A6 pawn dropping off.
Yeah, I think it's easier to prove the A6 pawn is a weakness than it probably is the more ugly Black White B pawns. So.
Okay, but that's a clever move to defend, isn't it? Because now if White exchanges, then you can play king takes and you're still defending that A pawn.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm sort of... The move knight g5 comes into my mind at various points, but I think it's usually a mistake because then Black can go bishop d4 and get some counterplay. I actually think that knight's really handy for covering d4. So, simple moves like king e2 make sense, but maybe... I mean, White could also keep all the rooks on and play some rook dc1 at some point, now that king e2 is coming in to cover the entry squares for Black's rook. Black would have to try to defend the a6 pawn while preventing the other White rook from invading. I think there's lots of ways of doing this with White. They all look quite promising. Could we very quickly see how they got here? Because it was a fairly standard position before.
Yeah, so now where were we?
So we were at kind of bishop c2, I think. Move 11 or so.
We were there?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So we had... So Yaya played d4.
Oh, she did play d4, okay.
She did. We were talking about it, weren't we?
We were talking about it, yeah.
Knight b3.
Okay.
And d3.
Yeah, this is the one. I think this is the one which was sort of on my mind, one of the significant lines where black ends up with a pawn on c2, but it sort of drops off, and it leads to an ending which is just sort of very slightly unpleasant for black. But she may have played bishop b1 here, which is more ambitious, I think.
Bishop b1 she played.
Yeah. But it may just be that in this position, bishop b1 is a very sensible move. But I think knight takes c5, d takes c2, taking on d8 and taking on e6 is either a variation or very similar to one, and white just ends up with an ending with slightly better structure. So again, it's not... I never found this line tempting for black, because you don't want to reach those positions where it's, you're fractionally worse and there's no fun to be had, really.
So takes.
Well, when I was working with the England team, they always said they were happy to have to, navigate some danger and do some theory. But there had to be like a justification. There had to be something at the end of it which was better than just dull equality or slightly worse. You could put up with the danger if you then get some winning chances. But the things where you just get...
I think that's right. Yeah.
You need that compensation. Otherwise, you don't want to be learning theory just to be...
And also, when I was playing internationally, I didn't want to just go into a worse endgame as well, because lots of the nations I felt like were particularly good at endgames, and so you'd want a position where you could play the middle game for a while rather than...
Yeah. No, we're at our best when we're trying to hack them. Is what you're trying to say.
A nation of hackers.
At our best, we are that. Yeah.
At our best. Yeah.
Okay. So it's pretty obviously all about the d3 pawn. It's either very weak and it drops off, or black manages to navigate things and then it could be a strength.
Yeah.
Might without knowing the position, it feels slightly more likely that it's going to be a weakness. But what did black play here?
Black play castles.
Should she maybe play something? Is knight d4 a threat? That's what I wasn't quite sure.
For white here?
Probably not.
You could, because black... Oh, right. So you're saying...
Well, I'm just wondering, knight takes, pawn takes, then the pawn would drop up, but maybe black can play c5, or maybe, maybe there's... I'm not sure. That's one thing I'd be looking at. In general, white can't just...
about black playing b4.
Oh, wow.
Instead of knight takes b3. So let me just...
I see.
Rewind slightly. b4 here.
Well, then I think white probably could just take on c5 and take the pawn and live with the... I mean, white would have a slight weakness of the c-pawn, but everything else would be quite pleasant, I think. Yeah. Part of what black's trying to do is keep that bishop keep that bishop on b1, because it obviously doesn't contribute a lot to white's harmony.
Yeah.
If white can simply take on c5 and then take bishop takes d3, I think she can put up with a certain amount of inconvenience in return. So I think knight takes b3 makes more sense.
This is right. Here, castle.
Oh, bishop d4. That's possibly clever. I don't know.
Takes. Okay. Well, this is a very interesting position then. So this pawn on d3 is, weak and probably dropping off. But there's this pawn on d4 that could also be weak.
I'm trying to understand why the engine doesn't dislike this for black more than it does, because if we just get to play bishop takes d3 now, it feels like more than whatever it's saying, 0.34.
Yeah.
Feels like a proper kind of pawn. So
black needs because it's like breaking open the center here.
Yeah, I just wonder whether black had some other move here. So can we just check if black's got an idea in this position, which maybe...
like f6, maybe?
Perhaps. It crossed my mind, but it does create new weaknesses as well, doesn't it? I wondered whether there's anything with sort of maybe queen d5, and if bishop takes, then bishop g4, and then try and show that white's d-pawn is quite weak. But I don't like it very much.
Drop back. Oh, wait, black's got the bishops, but you could drop back to e2 with the bishop.
Yeah, then I was hoping... but even if I win the d-pawn back, it still feels like a6 is very weak. I'm struggling to see why this isn't a bit more unpleasant for black than we're being told. But or maybe we should.
Thanks for the follow.
Maybe Queen D5 is a good move, but after Bishop takes, we just play Bishop E6 or something, attacking that pawn, and then play C5.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It might be good to keep. I mean, might just be Black needs to keep the bishop pair on, because the bishop pair is
that makes sense.
Obviously a better thing. Two bishops against bishop and knight tends to be better than just a bishop versus a knight, doesn't it? So
yeah, for sure. That's good thinking. Okay, so I played C5. We had bishop takes, and now one of the bishop pairs, one of the bishops do come off.
Yeah, now Black doesn't probably have the option I was just talking about, because if bishop E6, there's bishop E4.
Yeah.
Mind you, there could be bishop E4, and I'm still struggling to see really why this was ever okay for Black. But Olivia's done a good job, I think.
Yeah. So took. Yeah. And the queens have come off. Okay. So now, it's White does have this kind of extra pawn on E5.
Yeah.
Double B pawns, but the pawn on A6 is looking like it could become weak, and so which is what we were discussing before. They've played a few more moves, so King F8, King F1, King E7, and
okay, so she did make her take with the king,
and this is where we are. So I guess it's better for White this endgame. I guess Yaya will take with the king to keep that A pawn protected, and
I think so. I mean, she could take with the rook and play rook D1 to B1 and force the rook to go back to A2. But that that might be the end of the fun. I'm not sure I see a follow up in that position.
Yeah.
And as I said, king takes, White can look at kind of knight G5 things, but I think in general, giving the D4 square back to Black is a slightly risky way of doing it. I like the fact that White can also come in on the C file. I mean, I was tempted to do that with all the rooks on the board, but even after king takes, something like maybe...
like just rook C1 and then leave the A pawn for later.
Well, I wonder, I mean, rook C1, maybe Black can go rook C8, although that also seems to hold out promise of a pure minor piece ending. I'm not sure what I think about that.
Oh, yeah. Well, like
I was wondering also about rook D1 check, and if king E7, then rook C1 when there's no rook C8 because of B4.
Oh, yeah.
But I might just be trying to be too clever there. It's never. Although rook D1 check does also have the virtue, if the king goes king C7 or something, it also has the virtue of taking bishop D4 out of the position. So then knight G5 really might be a thing. I think Black's got more than enough problems to occupy her for the moment.
Okay. We'll leave Yao having a bit of a think about how to recapture that rook.
Natasha, I think I might need 2 minutes to stretch my
2 minutes break. I think I will do the same. So we're just going to pause just for a moment. Okay. I'll put us two off and leave the board on, and we'll just be there just for a moment. We're back in Okay, going to have a quick look at some of the games in the She Plays to Win tournament. And so we're looking at Carmen Ma against Eugenia Karas. And we saw it a little bit earlier. So let's go back to about here when White has castled kingside. And I'm going to keep an eye out for Peter as well. He'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so Black Eugenia, she played knight e7 and knight b3, bishop b6, and rook e1, looking at that knight on e7, and at which point Eugenia castled. And so this kind of position, we've got the isolated d pawn. We've got a few games today with an isolated d pawn, and White's trying to control this d4 square. And here we are. Peter can. Hello. I've just gone back to Eugenia's game. And
yes.
Yeah, so this one was this isolated queen's pawn game. And I'll just get us to where we are. So bishop g4 takes, queen takes.
Yeah, we left it with White threatening bishop takes a7, and I expressed confidence that
you would see it, and she's seen it.
Yes,
very good.
No surprise. c3.
Yes, c3 was played, and then Eugenia gets a rook on the d file.
I mean, the engine slightly preferred White out of the opening, and now it says it's about equal. I'm not quite sure what it would have had White do other than what she did, but okay, I think the position is, I mean, if Black can't play d4 at some moment, you still feel like you might slightly prefer to be White, but it's easy to see how you know, Black's position is very coherent as well. White needs to keep an eye on Black being able to play d4 at some moment.
I've just looked a little bit ahead on the moves at h3, bishop h5, rook e3, and then Eugenia came up with f5. Quite an aggressive move.
That's a bit aggressive, isn't it?
Yes. So it's a kind of balance, a trade-off between it's kind of attacking the White position, but also could be weakening this Black king. And
it weakens e6 as
square,
well as e5, doesn't it? It's not just e5. You've got to worry about a knight landing on e6 as well. I wonder whether it's something like queen e1 a move, maybe? I don't know. I mean, if Black has to respond passively to queen e1, then I would follow with knight d4, and then I start to think that looks a bit threatening. I don't really like the move f5 because I don't think there was much wrong with Black's position before it, whereas now she really has to prove something to be okay. So I suppose
was she worried about?
That's another way of saying it's very committal, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Was she worried about g4 maybe, or what was? Because rook e3.
I suspect that it's a kind of, like you said earlier, when you have an isolated queen pawn, you kind of want to be attacking.
Yeah.
It's almost like a psychological thing where you think that it's easy to think your position's slightly worse than it is when you've got the isolated queen pawn. Well, I think here Black's dynamically probably just about okay. Maybe White's fractionally better, but nothing much. But it's easy to feel like you need to do stuff to prove that you have enough compensation. And I think f5 may be just slightly misjudging how much you have to prove.
Okay.
I don't know, but we'll see. I mean, but I don't. After queen e1, I don't see an easy way of playing that for Black.
Queen e1.
Is that what she played?
Yeah, she did.
Okay. I mean, you see the appeal of the move. You unpin the knight, and you do so with a threat. So your chances of getting knight d4 are much better than they were.
I'm looking at maybe Black should just take off this knight. I'm just thinking because the knights are so good here, aren't they, to come into e5 and e6.
It's quite possible that bishop. But what would you play after rook takes f3 though? The problem is White's threatening queen e6 check, I think.
Yeah.
If she wasn't threatening queen e6 check, then you might have time to come around and start, fighting for e5 or something. But because she is, I'm a bit nervous for Eugenia after that.
Right.
And
yeah, so it's quite a dangerous position then,
I think it was fine. I think f5 is a move she may unfortunately live to regret.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really tough because they tell you to look at your games and then learn the lessons from them. This morning, I think she probably lost because she held back from making an aggressive move at one point.
Right.
It's so difficult when you have to draw a different lesson in the afternoon from the one you had in the morning. I honestly think that, it would be very easy to look at her game this morning and say, oh, okay, so I must play more aggressively in these critical moments. And then maybe this is the product of that sort of thing. I mean, I hope she finds some
game
way.
Chess, isn't it? Difficult.
It's very hard because you can easily, because it's all about balance in some sense. You can easily draw the wrong lesson very easily from it. I hope she finds some way out of this, but I don't think it's going to be easy. F5 has made it a lot harder.
Okay. Let's see. Lara against Alicia. Oh
my word.
We have an Alicia fan in the chat. It might not be going that well for Alicia, but let's see. Where did we leave it off? We had Lara. We had seen Lara already advancing these pawns.
We liked Lara's position around here already because we said she sort of had options of playing positionally as well as going for a hack.
Yes.
But obviously, as discussed before, we really want to go for the hack, don't we?
Yeah. Well, this is by nature the English players. That's what we do. Okay, rook e1.
I don't like rook e1 because I would keep that rook on the f file. I find that slightly strange. Like rook c1 or something feels more natural unless black had a threat.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, it's obviously you can see the point of defending e5, and you can possibly see the point of not wanting to play d4 while black can take on c3 or something. But yeah, could black have tried to play f5 somewhere around here to slow white down on the king side? I wonder.
Oh, it just shows what a difficult game. Yes, because we were just saying how f5 was too dangerous in the previous game.
I don't know. It might be a terrible move here too, but I'm not sure. Yeah, it's a very different sort of thing. This is more of a sort of preventative f5, whereas the other was a trying to be aggressive f5. I don't know. It feels I kind of want to hold white up if I can, and it feels like rook e1 might have made it slightly easier for black to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. What did she play?
Rook e8.
e8. Okay.
And now this nice plan, king up, and we saw she's going to keep bringing this king up.
Yeah, I
so
like
knight f8.
Okay, so that's trying to predict king g3 with knight g6, which is also a good idea, I think.
Yeah.
But maybe white can already play f5, in which
white has played f5. Yeah, okay, so white has played f5 here. So now the knight can't come out to g6.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a one-trick horsey, mightn't it, really? It's going the wrong way if white can just play f5 and stop it. Oh, the engine doesn't like bishop. The number of times I see engines not liking people exchanging knights with bishops when humans would be quite happy with it. Starts making me wonder if the evaluation of a bishop is even more than a knight, more than we realised.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's one of the things that all Matthew's researchers are showing him, but it wouldn't surprise me hugely if it was.
Yeah. Okay, c5.
Well, again, it's a fairly, if you sort of think about light and dark squares in the way that humans do, and I probably do in particular, it sort of makes quite a coherent story, but it does give white an added plan of playing c4 at some point, which kind of has some appeal. Because if black has to play d4, then the position, then it looks horribly blocked up on the queen side, and white should just deliver something on the king side. But I mean, I like white's position, no doubt about that. But so she played what? Queen f3 simply, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, d4 I don't like at all. I mean, I think, you can see why black wants to open some part of the game other than the king side, but it seems white can just play c4, and that would...
Yeah, this doesn't actually open the game, does it?
No, it actually more likely closes it, really.
Yes, and then once you've got a closed centre, then this action, white's action on the king side becomes harder to stop.
But yeah, then it's also complicated because they always tell you that if you have knights against bishops, you want to close the position. But half the time, that's not even true. So, so that's the problem with chess. Even some of the general rules are a load of nonsense.
Yeah. So bishop f4.
Yep.
See, white's going to bring this king forward in a minute, and
I suspect black might have overestimated the value of the b file. So she could easily think rook b8 and white can't play rook b1 because I'm hitting the e pawn. And then you sort of think, okay, so after bishop f4, I'll get a rook b2 check. And at some point around about now, you probably start to realize, actually, that doesn't mean very much compared with what white's got to offer on the king side.
Yeah, so rook b2 check.
Okay, so she did take a rook off. That's
oops.
That went very fast. I wonder whether black should have taken a rook off when white had to take with the queen rather than the rook, because this looks perfectly harmonious for white now. But, this is just but I don't think it makes a huge difference.
It's doing it on its own.
Oh, well.
Fine. Well, that's where we are.
Okay. Good job. It stopped at where we are, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is lovely for white because the king is very safe, actually. And white has sort of central pushes that she can sort of do almost at leisure, I would have thought. But it's really nice for white, but I'm not sure in human terms if it's as easy as 3.67 suggests. White still needs...
It could be nice, but not easy to win.
Well, I do wonder whether something like... No, that's probably not the way.
In fact, what is white going to do next? Is it like an e6 type plan?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think an e6 type plan is probably top of the list. And I was trying to wonder whether even queen d5 immediately is a very good way to get e6 in for sure.
Yeah.
Because after queen takes, pawn takes, rook d8, you just still go e6 and you're bludgeoning through. But yeah, that may well be true as far as it goes. So black might need to do something about that.
Okay.
Yeah, queen d5 may not be a bad idea. I don't know what the engine says, but it feels like that's one way to do it. I mean, if queen e4, black can play rook e8 and stave off, or rook b6 and keep some activity and stave off e6 for a bit. But queen d5, I don't know, that might be very hard to meet. But I'm only guessing.
I wonder if black tries to come right to the back rank.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of king g3, is that we might not care about a check that much. But okay, we might do, yeah, because the g4 pawn could hang in some of those things. Well, I don't know. I mean, rook b1, if we went queen d5 anyway, what would happen then?
Queen e7.
Oh, you're trying to...
I try and generate something.
Trying to respond to your difficulties by giving mate, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if I try and be consistent...
Not 100% sure it'll work.
If I just go e6 anyway, is it you?
E6. I'm going to check you.
Rook g1.
Maybe.
You're going to alter your check according to
how
I
was commit.
If you're not going to commit, then I agree. You've got tremendous possibilities.
Got all sorts of possibilities then.
You have. No, I'm not so sure. I'm not sure I want to play that position if you don't have to commit.
Fine.
Yeah, but I think queen d5 may well be part of the idea. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice position for white, but it doesn't feel like it's quite 3.67 in terms of, what is it? Is it Alpha Zero that does probabilities of results or something?
Indeed, yeah.
Yes, I wonder whether... Yeah, you see, she may well be trying to stop queen d5. Yeah. I've no idea if she was, but I'll take that as a vindication of my thinking. And my first question would be, can white just go bishop g5 and then queen d5 anyway? And the answer is probably no, because after bishop g5 you can go rook e8. And then queen d5 could be met by takes and f6.
Okay.
And then there might be some fight. Okay, but it's clearly a nice position for...
Yeah, it's a nice position.
Very nice position.
Yes.
Right. I mean, I doubt if it's what she's going to do, but you could probably even play bishop g5 and then take on h5 or something. There's a lot of ways to.
And now white, if white wanted to, I don't think it should do it, but white could also get the B file
You
herself.
could take the B file. Yeah, it sort of feels like if I was black, I'd be most worried about E6 in some incarnation.
And actually, because it does make it more difficult for white because there's sort of a lot of tempting possibilities, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, I've lost games because I've had so many good moves that I couldn't choose.
Choose between them all. Yeah.
Definitely one problem in chess. Queen E4 isn't ridiculous, because just to threaten E6. And then if Rook E8, we might be back to Queen D5 again. So.
The crowd's saying Queen B7.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's probably a good move.
Just round up a few pawns and then come back.
It's quite difficult to find moves for black after Queen B7.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, are you just threatening to take off all the pawns?
I think so. Yeah, just take on A7 and then C5 and then see what happens.
It's sort of pleasingly primitive. I don't know what to say about that.
Queen the A pawn.
Well, that's one plan, isn't it?
That's one plan.
That could be more than 3.67.
Alrighty. So we'll see what happens. Let's keep going.
But more seriously, if white took on A7, I'd go Queen C6 and try to make something of that diagonal, I think.
Right.
It was a bit greedy going after the A pawn, but it may well be what one thing.
I'm now going to. All right, now you've said it. I'm going to look what Queen E4 there.
Queen E4, that's good. I feel more. And Bishop G5. 2 of my moves were on the list. What can you do?
There we go. All right. Next one is Louise against Hannah.
Oh, wow. Look what's happened. That horse has come to D4, like I said.
Yes.
In a rather good way. I mean, this feels... Black's done this quite well, I would have thought.
Yeah. So we had, where were we? We had the knight just coming into B. We had 2 knights.
Yeah, we had white really sort of clarifying this putting a knight on B6 plan.
Here. Oh, it's doing it very fast.
And I meant, it's doing this thing again.
It's doing this thing. Okay, well, you saw it. You saw it.
You're not going to override it when it does that. You're just going to go with it.
The screen.
I must admit, at first glance, I now prefer black because that horse on D4 feels more... I don't know, when you've got a competition between different outposts, you tend to... Or I tend to be biased towards the more central one, and it just feels very relevant, D4. And, any queen takes B5 will always be met by A takes, and I'm pretty sure the A pawn will be a sort of weakness rather than an asset in that most cases. I'm not quite sure why the engine says it's
no, so am I going to jinx Louise again? I don't want to.
I must say, if given what I'm seeing here, I'm very impressed by... given her result this morning as well, Hannah looks like she may be a player to watch.
Right, yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm right in saying she beat Lara this morning.
Okay.
And, both games she looked slightly worse out of the opening, and then she's playing very well thereafter.
Okay.
I mean, maybe what can White still... I don't know. What's White meant to do here? Why is the engine so calm about all this?
Well, the first choice is whether or not to exchange the queens. But you do have to, if you're trying to move the queen out of the way, you do have to watch where, because there's all those knight forks like we were discussing before.
Exactly. I'm not sure if I definitely don't want to exchange on B5. I think that's a very bad step. But I'm not sure that I necessarily opposed to the queens coming off. Right. On the other hand, when White's made this kind of F4, F5 type stuff, you kind of feel that she probably has some attacking aspirations of her own. But knight E2 check's going to be a big problem in several of the lines I'm seeing. Does White have some specific idea here, which means it's not as difficult as it looks? I don't know. Do you share my feeling that this looks a bit unpleasant for White?
Yeah.
Maybe you do just having jinxed her, aren't you?
I'm just worried about jinxing her. Yeah.
It's too late for that. You've already done that.
We're commentating 3 rounds, Peter. It's a lot. We're commentating 2 doing another one on Sunday. Yeah. So that's a lot of jinxing to do. That's nearly half the tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a bit short on ideas for how to play this with White. I mean, moves like Queen H3 would I would consider.
All right, then. What about knight c4?
Knight c4. Okay, that's what I didn't
try
like
and
about that.
not
It felt like that knight was our only real asset, but it's true that might be a very pragmatic move. It does enable us to keep the queens on the board without.
Thanks for the follow, Natalie.
It does allow us to do that without sort of worrying about knight e2 checks and things. No, you're right. Knight c4 is probably. I don't think it's a terribly easy move to find because, firstly, it's your big asset is the knight on b6, and secondly, it's a backward move from a well placed piece. But it's a good move, yeah. I would imagine. Does the engine like it? I suppose.
All right.
I shouldn't ask that, should I?
We better see. Knight c4, yes.
Yeah, there you go. Well done.
There we go.
Yep.
All right. Let's see.
Maybe it's almost necessary.
Yeah.
But I think Black's done a good job here, and she.
Thanks, Kitticello.
Whether we're to blame or what, I think Black has done a good job.
Okay. Now let's see Daria against Mashdot.
Was that a pronunciation based on some?
No. It's the wrong pronunciation. I realised even while I was saying it, I can't say the properly.
Well, you said it sounded so. It sounded like so.
It sounded like I knew it.
Sounded like you knew what you were talking about.
Except to Dutch people, probably.
Oh, yes. I sort of imagined it was a fairly hard soundy, but maybe not. I don't like the fact that. Well, I don't really like Black's position very much. I don't particularly like the trade of white square bishops. As I said before, I'm petrified in general of. I think knights on f5 are a wonderful thing. And right now, I'm not quite sure what Black's intending against bishop h4.
Okay, bishop h4.
Feels to me like a move to be considered.
Yeah.
If I was Black, I would have been quite cautious about allowing this exchange of white square bishops on g4. I'm not a huge fan of that. I don't know, the engine's saying, it's saying quite a lot actually, it's saying 1.62. I think it probably, something's not gone well for Black here.
What's Black going for? D4, you can't.
Well, I think the move she wants to play right now, I think, is probably g6.
G6, yeah.
Although, if she played g6, it's not completely impossible that bishop h4 might still be an awkward reply. So,
okay.
Bishop h4 obviously probably threatens knight takes h6 check. Unless that rook coming round to g6 is real counterplay, which I doubt. And I don't know.
Okay, so it's White's go. So White could just go bishop h4 straight away.
Yeah,
right?
That's what would worry me for Black. Yeah, because obviously Black's very reluctant to play g5 with that knight already on f5.
All right. So we have to counterattack, of course, Peter. So knight.
Your best shot, Natasha.
Yeah, knight e5.
Yeah,
you just take.
Possibly, although I might check out knight takes h6 check as well. It feels a bit greedy, but that's not a reason to reject it.
Yeah.
We live in a greedy society. I mean, if I took on f6, what were you planning to do? Just take back and then threaten knight f3 check, sort of?
Yeah.
I mean, I could just go back knight d4 then again and claim I've made a positional gain. I don't like it for Black. I really don't.
No.
I wonder how she allowed this to happen.
Do you want to see how it happened?
I sort of. Well, I was a little bit feeling before that White's position. It felt like White just made very natural moves, and this kind of slightly unusual Black opening.
No, it's going too fast for me.
So it's doing that again, isn't it?
It is doing it again. There you are. You can see it in fast.
You've got it on some sort of auto play thing.
No. I'll just do it with my.
It's very clever, but.
Right, we'll go one more time. Right, get ready. It's going to be fast. Ah! There you go.
I'm thinking now, because I didn't know what black should play here, but it's feeling to me like I might have been responsible for some of her problems, because I think she's played some knight e5 idea.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned, but was a bit sceptical about. Yeah, there we go.
95
Didn't
here.
like that at all. I mean, I didn't massively like black's position, but I really don't like bishop g4. I think that's a serious positional mistake.
You want to keep the
I just don't want white's knight coming to f5. I think it makes it so much easier for white to find a plan, really.
Yeah. So maybe just leave the bishop there then.
Yeah, probably. I mean, but I don't see the fun for black. And she plays this opening with some quite sharp lines in it. But whenever I'm playing an opening with sharp lines, I think it's always got to be a fundamental question: where is the fun if the opponent just plays natural moves? And on this occasion, I don't really see it. Yeah, I don't like that move at all, because the f5 square is just sort of looming, isn't it?
Yep.
What did she do? She did it in some clever way. She did it with, I mean, even knight f5 here, it's not obvious to me why that wouldn't have been good.
She did it.
No, instead of bishop g3. Yeah. I mean, when oh, okay, no, sorry, there was knight f3 check. I'm losing the plot. Yeah. Yeah, now I'm still worried about bishop h4. I don't see a good.
Okay.
Yeah, this is going quite well for white.
Looking good for Daria at the moment.
Yeah, I'm definitely avoiding that name. Too difficult.
Alrighty. And now let's look at Zoe and Ellen.
Excuse me, sorry.
Okay. So now where do we see? So we saw them without any horsey chess with no horses.
We're just about to see some action. She's just.
We are going to see some action, but let's see how we got there. So we had horses at this point, and then
so we weren't sure about e takes d5, and we thought black was sort of active, but I wasn't sure about bishop e6.
Okay.
You see, this is the right trade.
Ooh,
but there's going to be some other trades as well, so there's some action coming.
Okay, so this is just a swap, though, isn't it? Rook takes c2, and we've got bishop f5 after.
Yeah, it's just a swap. It might be one of those things where it looks like action, and it's actually the beginning of a massive liquidation. I think we're going to reach.
Because
we're going to reach some position where I suppose it's true of the whole thing. Is the question is going to be, is the d pawn more of a sort of slight weakness, or is it a strong pass pawn sometimes? That's going to be the crux of the matter, almost however it goes with the other pieces.
Because the horses are probably going to come off. And so we'll be left with a major piece like queen, just maybe queen and rook for queen and rook, and then this d pawn. Yeah, is it a strong pass pawn or a weak isolated pawn?
Yeah.
But you kind of want a central pawn, don't you, in major piece endgame?
Let me just process that piece of information. Do you? Yeah, you probably do.
Rook endings you do, don't you? You prefer centre to edge points.
Yeah, on the whole, yes. Yeah.
But still, maybe it's just pretty level.
Well, I mean, there might be little things like, you could imagine if there's a middle gamey sort of element with queen still on the board, sometimes black would rather have her pawn on g7 than g6 or something. It might be nicer to have gone h3 than to have gone g6. But on the whole, what's white's best move here? I mean, obviously she has ways of not overworking the rook, so something like queen d2 would be a blunder because the bishop takes e5. But
oh yeah. Okay,
yeah,
so
she's got to put the queen somewhere.
Queen c3 or something like that.
Queen c3 is interesting because it at first I thought it threatened, but there's d4 in the position as well.
Oh, so all right. So do you have to go queen e2 then? Oh, but then rook e8. Oh, so maybe it's more to it.
There is a little bit more to it. I'm not sure.
Queen c7.
I mean, one possibility you could play. No, well, I mean, queen c3. I was looking at d4, but then if you have to play some move like queen g3 or something, if you need to keep then defending the bishop, then you've given the pawn a tempo to show that it's actually a serious player. Is there a...
What about queen c7 straight away?
Yeah, I wondered about that. I think there's no doubt. I mean, I don't think there can be any question of black being worse after queen c7 because she has takes, taking on b1 and then rook c8 to c2.
Right.
And I don't see how there could be any argument for white being better. I assume she's just making sure she's level. Unless, I just have a thought here. Is this going to be worth an analysis? It probably isn't because the thought is probably wrong.
I can
anyway.
do an analysis board
well,
if you
I
want.
just sort of,
noticed... Oh, hang on, I can do a drum roll. I forgot I had that. I've got all sorts here.
That's what we've been lacking.
We need a drum roll. Come on then, what's your idea?
Drum roll.
Did that work? I didn't hear it. I'll do it in an air horn. There you are, you can hear that. There's the drum roll. It's a bit quiet.
It's lacking the obvious impact you expect.
I was expecting a louder drum roll.
I was expecting, yeah, exactly.
There we go. Okay, well that's what you're getting.
That was the world's quietest drum roll, but okay.
Okay, nice. Waterford Wizard saying isn't. Oh, hi, female nurse. How are you doing? Thanks for the follow, Fork Power. Waterford. It's a bad joke drum roll. It is a bad joke drum roll. All right, what's your idea, Peter? Now we've done this.
My idea is Queen C7.
Yeah.
Can black? Okay,
I'm going to get an analysis board as well. Queen C7. She's played it. She's
played it. Okay, so I said takes, taking everything. So taking the queens, taking that rook on B1. It's upset things. The whole. Oh, it's disappeared because you've gone to the analysis board.
No, I just did that. So
yeah, that was all.
Queen C7. Okay.
Okay, and then I just wondered because I just said that I couldn't imagine white ever being better here, but then it occurred to me that if you play takes B1, blah de blah, as John Spearman would say, rook C8. Can white just go bishop F4, and if rook C2, go rook C1?
Here, rook C1.
That was my cunning plan, and the idea was then that actually, if you have to take on C1. Maybe you could be better, but the engine's pointing out that there is rook c4, which kills the idea anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, then I think white could be the one playing, because if you can put your king on d3, you can torture a little bit. And after the other important thing was that if after rook c1, if black takes on b2, she gets mated. Rook c8 and bishop h6. That was the cunning plan.
Ah, yeah. Okay, let's just see that. So that was
cute,
rook c2.
To cheer us up with all the pieces coming off the board.
So here, and this is the mate.
Yeah, I just wanted to give checkmate.
It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen.
That's not gonna happen. No, I realise that's not gonna happen, but it is nonetheless the justification for rook c1. That's fun, isn't it?
That would be white winning.
But that's not gonna happen, as you dismally said.
All right, but I think that deserves a cheer.
It's almost as loud as the drum roll, isn't it?
All right, let's go back. So she
okay, so that's all quite entertaining, but so as the engine pointed out, black can play rook c4, so there's still no question of white ever being better. Oh, but this is sort of happening to some extent. Rook c8.
Yeah. In fact, we could get exactly your line.
Yeah, the thing is, if she doesn't go bishop f4, I assume she might be a bit worse. But maybe she's a bit worse anyway. But I think it should be reasonably holdable.
Do they, by the way, I don't know whether they have to do a certain number of moves before offering a draw. Thanks for the follow, Ernesto Gonzalez Nia.
I have no idea. But it's a useful. But I don't think there's. I think black's going to try for a couple of moves here at least. I mean, after bishop f4, she could also look at rook c4 immediately, maybe. Just take my cheeky idea away and then play rook c2.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that white should be able to hold, but it's not going to be that easy. I think it's a tough afternoon with no horses if you're horsey chess.
Yeah. Horsey chess likes the horses.
She does.
Yeah.
So do I as well. I mean, like,
I do too.
The thing the guy said about, you realise how good the horses are when they're not there. That really resonated with me as a strange.
Oh, because someone was saying to me, I can't remember who was saying that a training technique is in a game where there's queens on, and you just remove the queens from the board and then say who's better there, and it kind of helps you with your strategy of whether you want to take the queens off or not.
Yeah, that's very sensible.
Horses.
I think imagining positions without the minor pieces, or imagining which ones you want to trade off, these are very good all of those things. Imagining almost any exchange is, and obviously the queen is good because it's the biggest of the exchanges, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the big
so
one.
here, if you took the rooks off, surely it's a draw.
Well, and that's what we were saying. If you take the rooks off, if rook c2, rook c1 takes, suddenly I think it's, if anyone's playing for the win, it's whites. I'm sure it's a draw, but black's then the one who has to be accurate because that d pawn could become weak in a bishop ending. I mean, I had this structure in a bishop ending against Beliavsky when I was
Did you?
young. I did, and it was no fun at all. I mean, it was different. The structure was a bit more messy than this, but basically the 2v1 on the queen side and my weak past d pawn.
Yeah.
But I mean, I said, she's played bishop f4.
She has. She's done it. We're going straight down your line.
You got to give me some credit here. What I said has happened.
It has, exactly.
No, you don't get that very often, do you? I don't expect that sort of thing. What actually happens to rook c2, rook c1, rook c4? What's white's best move?
Okay, so rook c2, rook c1, and then black plays rook c4.
Oh, I think white should take and play b3, and the c pawn isn't dangerous. It's more likely to drop off.
Okay.
I guess. But you could.
I still feel like it's all drawn, but am I?
Well, it sort of is, but I mean that's why Magnus Carlsen's been around for 10 years to show us, or 20 years to show us that things that look almost drawn are actually a bit tough still. Isn't that been his biggest contribution?
For
show us that tons and tons of positions just aren't simply drawn.
Play them, yeah.
Yeah, and everyone plays them now. You don't get any cheapo draw offers like you used to. It's all you got to work for everything now.
Yeah.
Very tough. That's why I should be playing seniors, because it's tough. Because the seniors, they're probably a bit keener to go home, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay, so shall we? Let's just pop back in on these two games that are looking.
Hello, action.
So this was Lara against Alessia, and we were there. So we saw it a few moves ago where there were kingside pawns coming forward. So we had the king on g3. So we had something like that.
Yeah. We were a bit further than that when we were on to moves after. Here, that's it. Queen e4, she did it. Okay. Oh, I said maybe take on h5.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that, but okay, that's interesting.
Knight comes in, and e6 is the plan. Takes, and queen e7.
Oh, it's long been the plan. It feels slightly, I don't know. The engine says this is just amazing. I sort of note that black has moves like knight f8 that maybe we need to just check over. But yeah, I mean, it looks like it should be winning for white. I think she's done a pretty good job.
I wouldn't think it'd be really, really easy. But so white's going to go h6 sometime, is it?
I don't know. She can, but I mean, she also can. I mean, how easy is it to generate a position where black can actually take anything? Well, maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah, maybe. So what's the killer move here? There should be a killer move.
Queen G6. I was going to say h6.
Okay, so queen g6. So what's the answer to knight f8? That's the
knight f8. You'd have to just drop the queen back, wouldn't you? g4 maybe.
But then why would queen g6 be such a good move?
I don't know.
Oh, it's not such a good move. The engine's not so impressed.
I didn't choose that one, but let's. Okay, let's see what the computer liked. Queen f5. Or queen g6.
No, that's what I wondered. I suddenly realised the boring old thing might be just liquidating everything and taking on c7.
Okay.
And it's just a very good bishop and knight ending because there's sort of action on all sides and blah, blah, blah. But it seems like a bit odd that that's the way to do it.
Maybe that's right.
I knew it is a heck of a bishop, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
It's a good bishop. In that case, I don't really understand the difference. She could do exactly the same thing after.
Didn't queen f7 check is a threat as well, right?
Well, if queen f7 checks a threat in general, then it's probably what's going to happen here. I mean, I don't think you play queen g6 unless you're planning to go queen f7 check. So.
Yeah.
So she's just going to take everything off, take on c7, and
the bishop's better than the knight.
The h pawn might be a huge asset, actually.
Yeah.
You know this position. I mean, it's not with the king on g3, but you know those positions where you take on g7 and then play h6, and the thing queens, even if you.
Yeah. Blue Crew's saying c5 and d4 aren't going to last long. So that's it. Just swap all the big pieces off, and
yeah. I think that's.
And then take the pawns that are on.
The knight can sit on e6, but then black can't defend the. Yeah, the king's just going to come.
Because the king's going to come in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a very, very good way from Lara Schultz's point of view to recover from this morning. I must say, it's a nice, very nice position to have.
Yep. And let's look at the other game that was looking decisive at this stage, which is here.
Oh my word! It looks to me like she did the bishop h4 idea.
Right. Yeah. So we had. Was it just here? Yeah. So bishop h4, and we were thinking of that for white, and she's played it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's no other reason Patel would have gone g5.
Yeah, g5 was played then. Bishop g3 and knight e4.
Yeah. Okay. I suppose the first question is: what is she in time trouble? She's not in huge time trouble. Okay.
No, not too bad. Not too bad.
What's wrong with simply knight takes d5? That looks quite strong.
Knight takes d5. Yes. Can you take on f5?
Yeah, and then queen takes e4.
Knight takes d5. Queen takes f5.
E4, and you have a fork on f6. But I think that.
Clever.
But I don't know whether that's that may not be any worse than anything else Black has to put up with here. That may be how the game may go. And then the bishop on g7 gives some sort of fighting chance, I suppose, once the knight on f5 is out of the way. Maybe there's something more incisive because it is a.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the computer's gone a bit more.
I assume she doesn't.
Got less excited now.
Is it? It's a bit less excited, but.
A bit less excited.
It's not unexcited. Is that a word? Unexcited.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Danny Gormley musing, doesn't it? I don't know. Maybe knight takes d5. I'm not sure. Is there a? I can't see another devastating middle game move. I think.
Yeah.
I think it's
knight takes d5 looks like the sort of thing, doesn't it?
Oh, she could do it with. She could. Oh no, she can't kick off with rook takes. That's a very bad move because of knight takes c3. No, okay, knight takes d5. My first idea wasn't so silly.
Yeah. All right. I think we should head back to the other.
Yeah, we should indeed. Now. Yes,
let's do that.
Good.
I might have to go this route. Next time I'll set them off. No, if I set them off on different tabs, I have to kind of flip. So I think this is sort of the way. Right. Here we go. We've got Sarah against Lanyao. Now, this was a very interesting 2 nights. And where did we see it up to? Queen? Somewhere around here?
I think we might. I think. I don't remember. Queen takes. This is black. No, what's the queen taking on e2?
So we had bishop a3, didn't we?
Oh, it's rook takes rook e8. That's right. Yeah. No, we talked about moves like rook takes e2. Okay.
Rook e1, and then we had takes. Okay, this is how it went. Yeah? And c5. So black's doing this. Sarah's doing the plan to redeploy that knight from a5 to get that back in the game. So c5.
Yeah, I think she's also hoping. She's also looking to cement that bishop on d4 because otherwise maybe there's some.
Yeah.
White can play knight e4 and try and use the c5 square maybe, so it's useful to get c5 in to stop that.
Yeah, and white does actually. Lanyao plays her knight into e4.
And then bishop d4, and then bishop it's nicely cemented. But it's still... Well, I think the assessment we gave wasn't that bad, that it's some compensation, but not full compensation, probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a pretty... I mean, the bishop on a3 could easily look a bit silly, couldn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I had initially thought white was going to put the bishop on b2 on that diagonal.
Aha, yeah. I mean, I suppose in this position it's not illegal to take twice on c5 and play b4 or something. I don't think it's the right way to do it, but the bishop isn't sort of terminally terrible. It's got options. But
yeah.
I like queen g4 because it might... I mean, the queen may end up being annoyed it has to be tied to defending the rook. In fact, is knight d6 a threat here? Probably is, isn't it? Knight d6 hits the rook and maybe threatens rook e8 check as well.
Oh, interesting. Yes.
The other thing I like about Queen G4 is that it's sort of got ideas of pushing the H pawn as well, which appeals to the Englishman in me.
So rook c6 out of the way.
That seems to stop
sensible.
the one idea, but maybe the H pawn is still a player. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this also, I mean, white needs to. Yeah, there could be a moment where black takes on e4 and swings the rook to g6 or f6. You want to be a little bit careful. Maybe h4 at that moment becomes a... Oh, my goodness. That is a very interesting tactic that I didn't see, but it may... So she wants to take and play queen a5, forking the bishop and the rook.
Ah, nice.
And let's see.
Well, it sort of solves the problem of the knight at the same time, doesn't it?
It solves the problem of our bad bishop on a3 as
well.
That's the piece she's winning. I wonder if there's going to be some queen d7 hit at the end or something. I don't know. It's not yet obvious to me what's going on.
Queen takes a3.
Oh, wait, so are things actually going quite well here? I think they are. That was a nice
tactic from Sarah.
That was a very nice tactic. Yeah, that could have been something that kind of really improved things for Sarah, but but white has a little tactic of her own now. So
okay, knight g5. Right, now what's happening here? Knight g5. And queen e8 threatened with a fork.
The rook's hanging, mate is threatened, and f-pawn moves don't stop the mate, which is...
Okay, so this is clever too. So drop the rook back. Can we do that?
Well, no, that doesn't stop the mate either.
That doesn't stop the mate. No, it doesn't, because then there's... So if rook c8, there's just queen e8 check takes, and rook e8 is checkmate because the knight's covering that h7 square. Very clever tactic from Lan Yao as well.
Yeah, it's a good tactic. Okay, so does she actually have to take this horse? Does she have to set the... I mean, you can imagine that she might... That bishop on d4 is such a great piece that if you take off a piece that can challenge it, that could work out quite well. I imagine that this is a forced exchange sack, for which there are better descriptions than forced exchange sack. But white has just won the exchange, but she may or may not live to regret... Sorry, she may could live to regret that, perhaps. I don't know. Very interesting stuff.
You could. What if you go? You probably said this. What if you go f6?
It's also mate. Still queen e8.
Oh my goodness, that's
essentially
clever.
defending.
That is really clever. So
it's all very clever, but defending the e8 square
rook takes, and it's still mate.
Yeah, it's all mate. I think she absolutely has to take the knight. The only other legal move I can see is c4, which just loses the exchange under worse circumstances. So actually, it loses more than the exchange because rook e8 is threatened after you win the rook.
Very clever. Okay, so
the knight's the only move.
Yeah.
But f2 is very weak, and that bishop is a real dude. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay.
How great.
So the follow, Andre. Queen e8 check. King h7.
I mean, Sarah's king suddenly looks nice and cozy as well. Although I suppose there's knight e4 to think about. But no, there's a lot to like about the position as long as you don't count the rooks.
Okay, a question for you. Do you think anyone can get to 2000 strength if they train enough?
I don't know. I'm well on the way. So, there's that question throws up a few questions. At any age?
Yeah, I think
would be one question. Where are you starting off from? Might be another question. I don't know.
And yeah, I think you'd have to love it as well, right? If you're starting.
I hope he doesn't mean the one about me heading for 2000 strength.
You're 18. You're 18 years old.
If
you really love chess and you're 18 and you study a lot, you have time.
Okay.
Yeah, can you get to 2000? I don't know, but you'll definitely improve fast.
I would have thought you have quite good chances. Yeah, but I also think you have better. Yeah. I think you have better chances if you're just enjoying the chess and don't focus on the 2000.
Yeah.
I honestly think that. I honestly think that if you focus on the those kind of goals, then you're already distracting a bit from the process of getting there. But yeah, good chances. Good chances.
Well, we interviewed Terry Chapman for Chess for Life, which is a book I wrote with Matthew Sadler about sort of playing chess in later life and how you do it. And Terry had been a good chess player, then gave up and was like a businessman. And then at the age of like, I don't know, over 50 anyway, came back to chess and put in this kind of quite rigorous training program. He was very scientific about it all. And he did improve a lot. He got to FIDE master. Yeah, and improved a lot. I think his target was international master, and he didn't quite get there, but he did improve a lot at a senior age level through kind of study and playing. He liked to play games against a friend. He had a friend who was also trying to improve at the same time, and they picked an opening and then played training games and that sort of thing. So he had a lovely time, actually.
That's a good way of doing it, I think.
Yeah.
Playing an odds match with Gary Kasparov probably helped as well.
Well, that was true. That sounds fun.
That may not be available to everybody, but certainly helped.
Yeah.
I think at 18, if you're really enthusiastic, the main thing is whether you enjoy it. If you don't enjoy the training, then I couldn't make a prediction on whether you're going to make it or not.
Yeah.
But if you really enjoy the training and you've got lots of time, then I think the odds are probably on your side. Yeah,
I think so. Look, this computer doesn't like queen takes b3. That was the move I would have played as well.
Yeah, I wanted to concentrate on the dart squares and make some like queen. I don't know, maybe queen b2 isn't the move, but something like that, which
and just
ties white down to some defensive things. But I'm not sure. Maybe there's a better move.
Or
you see what I'm getting at? I just want to sort of tie white down.
My instinct is to just take one of those pawns, but maybe that one has to control that kind of instinct.
Well, I mean, maybe not. But which pawn do you want to take? Well, taking the b3 pawn.
Well, I would have taken the b3, but now the computer says not, so then maybe the d3.
Yeah.
By elimination.
Poor old Sarah didn't have the option of checking the computer not liking it before she did it.
No.
It's not that obvious at all that taking b3 is bad, but my instinct was certainly to move to a dart square if I could.
Okay.
But I don't know if queen b2 is a better move. It may not be.
Yeah.
Shall we go and catch up with the play? Because even the diagram is 4 moves behind the live situation. Oh, f5. Oh, no. If she has to play f5, that's obviously... Why was queen d7 so nasty? It threatens queen h3 and rook h8. But I thought in those situations she was going to go f6 rather than f5.
Okay. Maybe she should.
Well, I'm trying to work out... Oh, no, then there's rook e... Oh, no.
Knight f5? Threatening... Queen g7.
Oh, then there's knight f5 anyway. Yuck. Okay, that's the problem. So, yeah, here we have it. That was, I guess, the problem with queen b3. I think that's relatively easy to miss. Not just because I just missed it, but I think it's missable. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate for her because she'd done a very good job with the knight takes b3, queen a5 of getting right back in, or of staying right in it, as it were.
Takes, queen takes.
Okay.
Knight takes d4, c takes, and queen a7. So now Lanyao is now turning into an endgame with the extra exchange, and also black's pawns are a little bit weak, the g pawns.
I mean, just wonder if the d pawn is potentially dangerous enough to make. No, I think it's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, Sarah's chances lie with this d pawn, and can she dangerous? But it is the exchange.
Yeah. Okay, one nice way to go down. If white plays queen e7 and black goes d3, white must avoid queen e3, queen takes, pawn takes, bishop h5, and I think black wins on the spot.
Gosh, I like that one.
There's one to avoid.
That would be easy to fall into.
You see, I can see how to lose still.
Yeah.
That's quite nice, isn't it? That really is.
I'm going to play it on the board then. This everyone, this hasn't happened.
This is just me showing again how to lose a winning position.
Yeah.
D3, Queen E3.
Here, takes.
Can you see the way that assessment fell off?
Oh, and there. So that would be how Sarah could win, but she can't force it, unfortunately, for her.
When I say winning on the spot, there may still be a few technical difficulties, but it's clearly not a step in the right direction for White.
Then this deep pawn is really doing the business.
I don't think there are actually any very big technical difficulties. Okay, so that's the way to lose for White. Now, what should they do to win?
All right. Oh gosh, I've just noticed it's 6 o'clock. Should we just flick through the
we should flick. Oh, I'll tell you one idea I hadn't noticed until now. Queen A1 to meet D3 with Rook E7, sort of mating.
Right. Clever.
That might be a bit unpleasant.
Then threatening that G7 pawn.
Yeah, I mean, mating may turn out to be an exaggeration, but perhaps not. I think that's mating. That's good geometry, that is. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's maybe.
Elżbieta.
Oh, she's made good use of that queen on G5. It's still there. It's like all this stuff's happened and nothing's happened to that queen. She's just a pawn up with a great position.
Okay.
I wonder what Black did in that position. Did Black play D? No. Did Black play any of the things either that I or the computer was recommending? D5.
So where were we?
Anyway, it looks like White was doing very badly around here. Oh, she did do some E5 and Knight B4 stuff. That's interesting. Knight takes D5. Was all the step in the wrong direction. Oh, that's a sort of little tactic. That bit of a disaster for Black. Yeah. Yeah, and there's no way back from that tactic, really is.
Okay, so looking promising for Elżbieta.
Yeah, I mean, it's still possible not to win, of course, but it's a very good position.
It's a pawn. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Madara against Sheila. Now, we were liking Sheila's position, weren't we, earlier? She had sort of controlling the centre with her bishop against Madara's knight. I'm not sure. Where were we? Somewhere like there? Did we get this far?
We were a bit further back than that. Black hadn't had to go F5. In fact, we were a fair bit. Yeah, somewhere around. Somewhere
like this. Oh, we were talking about C3 and B5, weren't we? C3,
yeah, we were talking about maybe B5, moving the queen to play B5, which happened. And
so A3, bishop G7, rook F3, F5.
Yeah.
Rook G1, rook B6, H4. So Madara is advancing everything on the king side.
I mean, I kind of think from White's point of view, it's something that she's managed to make it partly about the king side. Sort of, yeah, that in itself is something of a success. But
yeah, not just an endgame.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is where they are at the moment.
Yeah, it's not so clear to me how.
It feels like Black's bishop's still better than White's knight to me.
I'm not sure. Just imagine a scenario where I managed to defend the F pawn and then put the knight on E5 or something. I think I can, at the moment, I can sort of imagine the knight being even better than, the knight can improve. It's not so easy to see how the bishop improves. I'm not even sure that.
Feels like the bishop is never coming in, says the crowd. Yeah, okay. But how do we defend even this F pawn now?
Well, we could take queens and go king G2 to F3 or something.
Yeah, okay.
And then
fair enough.
But rook G3, I think, is what she did, isn't it?
Oh, I think we're. This is,
we're there. Oh, we're back. We are here. Okay.
I think. Let me just.
No, I think there's more, isn't there?
Is there more? No.
Oh, okay. I'm getting confused by what's gone. Yeah. I don't know. Okay, but if we do what I just said, then Black has time to go rook E4, which will stop White from moving the knight, and then I do believe that Black's doing quite well. So
okay, Madara's getting a little bit low on time as well.
Yeah. No, this could go any way, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And then let's see Audrey and Canwell. So this was a very exciting game, wasn't it? But now we are in a rook and pawn endgame with Canwell's king coming in and Audrey's king also coming in.
Well, and maybe her rook with rook g6 or something, but
yeah. Okay, they've made it to 40 moves. I'm not sure if they get more.
I suspect we're going to get a short break from any flurry of moves that's happened if it's move 41. Or
yeah.
I imagine some time will be taken. I would think rook g6 is probably looking quite promising for white. I don't know.
Okay. So rook g6.
Oh, then rook e7 perhaps. No, that may not be the way. Maybe there's another way. Even rook d5 is a way to take the c-pawn, isn't it? But it feels there's also rook d7 may be a good move, just taking g or a pawn. I think there are things for black to be worried about here, probably.
So rook d5, you can't take it off because
maybe you can.
I
probably should have checked that. No, rook d7 would be more sensible. So I've got half an eye on the fact I really ought to go actually.
Yes. Okay. Yep.
Sounds very unlikely, but I'm about to go and do some football coaching. So
football coaching, well done, Peter. Well, that's good. All right, we'll just touch on the last game and then we'll finish. So Olivia against Yao Yao, and this one, okay, Yao Yao's done quite well to get. She's come back because it was
I think she probably tricky for her, wasn't it? Probably white did. Oh, but it's white's move and there's rook f7, so it's hard to say. Well, in that case, no, maybe it's all fine for black because she can cover. Sorry, all fine for white. No, she's got. There's rook c8 is a problem, isn't it? White wants to play some. Black, sorry, wants to play some mix of rook c8 and king e4.
Yeah.
And maybe she has time to do that if she goes rook c8 first.
Okay, but Yao Yao's a little bit short on time here, so that's going to be interesting to see how that one will go.
Yeah, it looks very tough position, but it's also. I mean, white can maybe. Oh, I don't know. No, it's too hard to make an instant assessment.
Alrighty, so that's round 2 of the Women's Invitational, the ECF
very
Women's
exciting
Invitational.
round 2, I have to say.
Very exciting round 2, and also the She Plays to Win first Congress, first International, and we're going to be back, Peter, aren't we? Tomorrow afternoon, same time, 3 o'clock.
Yep.
For round 4 of this same event. See if anyone can get to the 6.5 points needed, we believe, to get a Women's International Master Norm. So good luck to all the players, and thank you everybody very much.
Thanks everyone for the chat and for watching.
Thank you very much, and see you tomorrow.
Thanks. See you tomorrow. Bye.